Hello and welcome to another episode of The Only Playbook. I am Sweetcar. I got Shashot and Shovit. It is Tuesday. We are recapping Week 14. This is the 28th episode of the season already, guys. How are we doing?
Playoffs.
Dude, that's on everybody's mind, right? That GIF. What's his name? Jim Mora? Jim Mora? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Big week. Some fantasy leagues started their playoffs. We have playoffs starting next week. Our league is 1 week matchup. My other league is 2 week matchup. It's all fucking all over the place.
God, I squeaked into the playoffs as a 6th seed in both my other leagues.
Really?
Fucking barely made it. As a 7-7 in both leagues.
Yeah, that's like literally my situation in our league.
7-7 in one league after going 1-6. And then, our league,
That's funny.
Place.
That's the exact opposite of me.
So all three of us are in the playoffs in all of our leagues.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's some goddamn credibility for our podcast, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
But then again, like, what is new, though?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just playing.
Nobody else knows about that, but we talk about track records all day.
Yeah. ESPN app actually updated. You can go back and look at your old stats and stuff now.
Oh, nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I was just sitting there just masturbating, looking at all those things. It was amazing.
2013, 2014. Dude, damn. Yeah, I could spend hours looking at that, seeing who my teams were. But yeah, important week. So much shit happening in the NFL. Again, appreciate all the support, guys. If you guys enjoy our content, please like, subscribe, tell your friends. YouTube, Apple, Google, Anchor, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We're at The Only Playbook everywhere except Twitter, at Only Playbook. Get the up-to-date injury updates and everything you need on Twitter. Otherwise, again, we appreciate the support. You guys liking and interacting with all of our social media helps spread the word. So, again, appreciate all the support so far. Shashot, we have playoffs coming up in our league. There are so many goddamn injuries here. Take it away, man.
Yeah. First things first, COVID is taking over the world by storm right now. It's winter time.
It's like the 76 strain.
It's officially COVID season. Like it has begun. So it's going to get worse. It's just going to get worse and worse all the way till July. Prepare accordingly. If you have, this is like, if you don't have your handcuffs, you better freaking go get your handcuffs. You got to drop the freaking, if you might even have to drop like, let's say a Cole Beasley or Emmanuel Sanders that you're holding on to just in case something happens to Diggs, or, players that you don't have in your roster that you're holding on to, drop those players for players that can back your own roster up. Then that way you have 100% security. Rather than if your player gets hurt and you have someone else back up, but his backup is playing or his starter is playing, then you have no use for that backup and you just got screwed and you're bye-bye. You're not going to
I've got handcuffs that need handcuffs.
Madison. Honestly.
Yeah, Madison. We got Williams, both all out for like COVID issues and things like that.
Yeah.
So need to know who these guys are to get.
Yeah.
So you're bringing up a great point, right? It's like at this point, if playoffs have started, you have 2 or 3 weeks max.
Yeah.
If you know for a fact there's a guy on your bench that you're just not going to start during the playoffs, drop his ass.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no need.
There's literally no need.
Yeah, because COVID's going to be like you're going to have a game on Monday and you're going to have one tight end playing. Like Higbee. That's what happened to Higbee yesterday because a lot of people had Higbee last person playing. They needed 2 points from him. They went to bed all secure. He ended up not even playing because he got COVID 3 hours before the game.
Dude, that's wild.
So then, they're screwed. They just officially got screwed. So those are the things you got to prepare for because you can't let just things happen. But anyways, let's jump into this stuff. This list is a lot smaller than the last couple of days. This is an updated list from yesterday, and then I've made some changes. But this week, we're going to be in town. We're not going anywhere. There's no weddings.
Nope.
So expect a lot of updates on Twitter because the last 2 weekends have been insane.
Yeah.
We haven't even been able to be in the city. So, okay, here we go. So Madison was actually unvaxxed. Looks like a lot of the Vikings are unvaxxed. 62% vaccination rate, as we discussed early in the season. So he's not going to play for 10 games. So if Dalvin Cook's shoulder, something happens to it, you got to have Keenan
Wangu season
ready to go.
God.
So he's definitely going to miss until the last game of the playoffs. Lamar Jackson, not a high ankle sprain, so he should be playing. But then again, he banks on his legs, right? Yeah. So I mean, if you have Taysom Hill right now and you have Lamar Jackson, you're playing Taysom Hill, right? There's no debate there. So to take what that's worth, it's going to get updated later in the week. But he's a running quarterback, so
and he's already looked so bad the last 4 weeks.
Yeah. So it is what it is. You're not going to be playing him if you have other options like a Dak Prescott or other things. Kareem Hunt, high ankle sprain, unlikely to play Saturday. Dearness Johnson, go grab him. If your son this and you're not listening, sucks to be you because I'm going to make sure he's on my team. James Conner, ankle MRI today. The MRI results haven't come out at the moment this podcast is being recorded. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Apparently, it was the last play of the game, so we couldn't even see what exactly happened. But he just kind of got an ankle sprain, and he didn't play the rest of the game because there was nothing to play.
The game was over.
Yeah. So Hopkins also got a new injury. That one seems a little bit more severe. We also don't have the results for that. We should be getting all this in tomorrow. Damian Harris is rehabbing from a hamstring. He was limited today. Yesterday he didn't practice. So looks like against on this if you're listening to this,
Stevenson.
make sure you got the backups ready, which he doesn't for either of these guys. So hopefully they're both out for a little bit
Don't
longer.
you place on this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's definitely not listening.
So you're giving him all these
So
insights. to, like,
but
beat you
we
right
know he
But
doesn't
we know
listen.
he's not going to listen to
Yeah,
us. So.
it's all right.
But anyways, Elijah Midler, he can return for the last 2 games this season.
Elijah Mitchell.
Elijah Mitchell, sorry.
Yeah.
I guess my autocorrect ruined this.
Yeah.
But anyways, the reason I even bring this up is because he's a dynamic player, and he might be a good flex spot the last 2 weeks. And a lot of people have dropped him. His ownage percentage has dropped by like 30%. So if you want to be one of those guys, pick him up. Yeah, because, he was on the IR, and it's this late in the season. Some people's playoffs started last week. He might not be in time, but our playoffs, we still get 2 weeks of Elijah Mitchell. A lot of people dropped A.J. Brown, so these are the kind of players that you kind of got rid of in your mentally, but then they might come in and do something in your flex spot. So, yeah, pick him up if you can. Michael Carter likely returning this week, most likely, very likely, probable going to play. DJ Moore, day-to-day with his hamstring injury. He had a little bit of connection with Cam there, made some crazy catches, but too bad half of those were out of bounds. DJ Moore back to fantasy relevance looking like. We'll see. Justin Fields, he has a left-hand contusion now. He just keeps coming up with new and new injuries, but it is a left hand, so that should not change anything except for just a snap. Mac Jones was limited with a sore thumb on his throwing hand.
All that throwing he did,
Yeah, all those 3 passes. 3 passes.
3 attempts.
God.
Yeah, man. His jersey was like clean.
Yeah.
He had like no spots on his jersey.
His arm is sore only in one motion, and it's this because of all the handoffs.
Yeah, they're probably just grabbing his finger.
Yeah.
Come on, running backs. Watch out.
Forearm soreness.
But yeah, he's got a sore thumb and he's limited, but he should be fine. Miami backs, all 3 backs that are actively rostered, all have COVID. So now Malcolm Brown should be activated a little early. They also upgraded Duke Johnson, who's been journeyman all season long. They activated him to the active roster, so it should be a Malcolm Brown and Johnson show this weekend. But they were the Gaskin and gang were diagnosed with COVID a little bit earlier than that window, and I think they're all vaccinated, so they could come back Saturday.
Okay,
so should be okay. Eckler wouldn't have practiced yesterday, but they didn't have a practice today. He was limited. He's just sore, apparently. I looked this up on multiple different areas. They all said there's nothing to be concerned about. He's just sore. Kadarius Toney is also on the COVID list. This guy is trying to get like the bingo card of all the reasons
every injury possible.
You can't play this year. Yeah, like he's just finding ways to not be on the field. That's okay though, because this gives him a bad, end of season. Like how people perceive him is going to be really buy low stock.
There's a lot of value.
He's going to be like the next Deontay Johnson if he can stay healthy. Josh Gordon on the COVID list. He is vaxxed. I don't even know why this is relevant. But that's because he scored a touchdown last week. But anyways, they try to throw him the ball a lot later in the game because they have the game secured. Tony Pollard, he should play now. He had the plantar fasciitis. But I think he should play. They said he was very close to playing even that game.
That's wild.
So
even with that tear?
It must be a minor tear.
Yeah.
Probably a small tear. It is a Giants, though, so it could get out of hand, and Zeke could just take over. So, against on this, if you're listening, get his backup. Emmanuel Sanders has a knee injury, should be out. Nothing to worry about there. No one's going to start him this late in the season, but deeper leagues, you may. David Johnson is now the official running back for the Texans. He's activated off of the COVID list. And there's talks now that they're unhappy with Rex Burkhead's usage. So again, this is we're at we only have one more thing to say, so it just gets worse and worse as we're finishing up the injury report. But yeah, no one's gonna be starting David Johnson. Yeah. These are all just speculations. If you have to start him, you start.
Imagine not being happy with Rex Burkhead. Like I mean, like how can you even come to that conclusion without bad? Like, why is that where they're pointing?
Not sure, man. It's probably the 1.7 yards per carry, but again, like where do you see even
every running back's done the same thing?
Yeah. But anyways, looks like they're going with David Johnson now. And then Josh Allen has a foot sprain and he's day to day. Some places said it's a turf toe issue, which would be a lot worse. But yeah, either one, foot sprain or a turf toe, those are both bad for a running quarterback. Again, we have no updates on this today.
Mitch Trubisky gets a start.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Carries them. They win the Super Bowl.
Wow.
In 3 years.
They decided to run the ball more now and not use Josh Allen.
All of a sudden.
Wow. They didn't even run the ball once in the whole first half.
Yeah.
That's insane. But anyways, that is the injury update list. Just stay tuned on Twitter for Wednesday's updates, and then Thursday we're not going to be recording because we're going to go watch Spider-Man. So we're going to be tweeting then too. But then we'll have all the latest updates on our next podcast. If you don't want to go on Twitter, you can make sure we'll have it up on Friday.
Yep. At Only Playbook on Twitter, guys. Turn on the notifications. It does help. Let's jump into it. The games this weekend, starting with the first game on Sunday, big divisional game. The Baltimore Ravens travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Lamar Jackson was slated to start this game. He did start this game. He played 7 snaps, and then he got hurt, carted off the field. Browns took advantage, win the game 24-22 final. Ravens actually cover the 3-point dog spread. Over under 42.5. The over slightly hits. This actually became a closer game after Lamar Jackson went out.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson doppelganger comes in and
dude, that was one of the best runs of the year. That run was insane.
From left to right.
From right,
left.
yeah. Just it was wild. Yeah. If whoever's listening, please go watch that run because that was the best run by a quarterback. It was 3rd and 20, and he got 12 yards, I think, out
Something
of
like
that.
that.
But it was crazy.
should other teams be looking at Tyler Huntley as a possible hey,
No.
why shouldn't we think about this guy?
I don't think so.
No?
He's perfect for Lamar's backup.
As a backup.
Yeah.
He does everything Lamar does, just slightly worse.
Yeah, this game was basically a tale of two halves, right? So the Cleveland Browns scored just enough in the first half to win the game because I don't think they had any score.
I don't think they scored in the second half.
The second half. And Baker Mayfield played efficient in the first half, actually. So his stats were, he went 14 of 16 for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he did just enough for them to kind of get ahead in the game. And even towards the end, the Ravens still had a chance to come back and win the game. I think it was a sack or something. Something happened with Huntley that he wasn't able to produce, late in the game, and they ended up losing it. But you gotta like what you saw from the Browns in the first half. If they can kind of continue that throughout the game, then they have a better chance against stronger teams.
I remember talking last week that the only way the Browns can win this game is if the defensive ends go ham. And what did the defensive ends do? They went ham. They just sacked the hell out of the Ravens, got an injury on Lamar Jackson. It was a sack fumble return for a touchdown. They basically played the best football they could. And knowing what the rest of the offense is capable of, the defense really had to step it up to beat the Ravens. And this is exactly what happened. The Lamar Jackson injury was huge, right? Obviously, it was huge. It was just perfect game script. Everything worked out perfectly for the Browns to win this game. If the Browns had lost this game after Huntley came in, which was the beginning of the second quarter. So Lamar Jackson played the whole first quarter, and then he was not able to play after the first snap in the second quarter. If the Browns had lost this game, then they were just done. Then you could just bury them at this point. Can't beat a backup for 3 quarters. That's a respectable win by the Browns from a defensive standpoint. Offense, again, it's kind of like the Viking situation. You can't just not score in the second half. You got to keep up.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. 24 points in the first half with ease, right? And then all of a sudden you just take your foot off the gas and you let somebody who is not a starting quarterback in the NFL bring you back. Like you mentioned, Shisho, big game for obviously Myles Garrett had a sack. Jadeveon Clowney had a sack and a half. 2 QB hits from Clowney as well. They both had 3 tackles. So big game from the ends, creating pressure. And with Huntley and Jackson being similar quarterbacks, a lot of times they like to run out. So with these defensive ends coming in, that's where you're seeing a lot of not knowing where to go. There's not a lot of creases in the middle, and then that's how they produce those sacks. So QB contain really, really worked for the Browns. Again, the Browns are now 7-6. They are still close in that playoff race.
Right.
As are the Ravens, right? I think that division's now 1 game away.
Exactly. So they need to beat out the Ravens in order to get the number 1 spot, but it's close. I mean, Bengals are there. Steelers is also there in the 4th seed, believe it or not, a game and a half back from the Ravens. So it's definitely up for grabs for the number 1 spot there.
Real quick, fantasy things real quick. Devonta Freeman has definitely solidified the starting running back role there. Mm-hmm. We have Murray just vulturing away.
1 carry, 1 yard, 1 touchdown.
Yeah. And Mark Andrews probably solidified the number 2 tight end in fantasy role now, right? With Kelsey not scoring a touchdown the last 4 weeks. And Kittle just being the number one scorer in back-to-back weeks. Number one fantasy scorer. We're not even talking just tight ends. So Kittle's going crazy. Mark Andrews is the next closest thing to that. And then we'll talk about the Chiefs when we get to the Chiefs game. But from a fantasy perspective, some of the things are pretty clear now. It's just Devonta Freeman there. They're not going to mess around with it. There was like a trifecta, quadfecta of running backs. But now they're just going Freeman. And when Freeman needs a breather, which is closer to the goal line, they're going to go with Murray to vulture those touchdowns.
Yeah. Shout out to Rashad Bateman. He had 7 for 103. I think his best game of the year on 8 targets.
Those are some sick catches.
Dude, he's got hands. And he goes up and gets those. That back shoulder one, the timing one where he just stopped and the cornerback kind of went forward and he made that adjustment. He looked really, really impressive. So he had that connection with Huntley. So you just really, really hope that he can build that connection with Lamar Jackson because Lamar desperately needs an outside receiver that can do that. So good for them. They have a tough game next week. They got to play the Packers, so the Ravens need to stack up wins. Browns get an easier matchup. They are at home against the Raiders, who have looked really, really messy here the last couple of weeks. So again, that division is probably going to come down to that final week. So should be a wild ride. We'll talk about the playoff contentions there at the end of the episode. Take it to Tennessee, where the Titans were hosting the Jaguars this week. Titans take care of business, 20-0 this one. They're now 9-4. Jags dropped to 2-11. Urban Meyer just continues to say stupid ass shit. Makes no sense how that guy is still the head coach there. Tennessee covers the 8.5 point spread, under 43.5 hits. I mean, the Jaguars scoring 0 points is literally the epitome of the Jaguars this year.
Yeah, not surprised. Not surprised.
That and Trevor Lawrence's 4 interceptions.
Not surprised there either.
No.
Yeah.
Not surprised. All these things not surprising me is the reason I started the Tennessee Titans defense. And 19 points was beautiful in 2 out of 3 leagues. But yeah, the Jaguars, we talked about how they don't score more than 20 points in like any of their games. And so when we talk about the worst team in football, and it's a toss-up between the Texans and the Jaguars, who would you pick right now after this week?
I'd take the Texans.
Yeah.
How sad is it? And think about this. They both have rookie quarterbacks, right? Tyrod Taylor aside. A guy who is literally, arguably, for the last 3 years, like donned the next Peyton Manning, and then you have a guy who is a nobody who gets thrown into the fire, who's actually surprisly played decent football.
Yeah. I think the Jaguars are definitely the worst team.
Yeah.
The Texans are a better team. They've got better receivers. At least they have like Cooks, and some of their other receivers, rookie receivers that are getting touchdowns for them. So, the Jaguars just suck, man.
Yeah, dude, it's definitely, this is the definition of bad coaching.
Yeah.
Like, they're just, I don't even want to talk about it.
Imagine having James
They're not
Robinson
worth
at
our
the
breath.
beginning of the season and seeing that he only gets 6 carries in that game. Like, the game is, you look at the halftime score, it's 10-0. Do you really run away from the running game when it's only 10-0?
Right.
And I don't really understand what's going on there.
No, especially with a rookie quarterback who hasn't proved anything, who's literally just been throwing interceptions on interceptions. As he's throwing interceptions as the game progresses, the Jaguars still decide to keep throwing the football. 8 carries for the fucking whole team?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, none of this makes sense. And some other stuff that doesn't make sense is Trevor Lawrence has no passing touchdowns in 6 games this season. As a team that's always coming from behind, as a team that's always just trying to throw at the end of the game, he just can't.
Still can't even get garbage points. Like that's when you know shit's bad. Like, the teams stop playing defense at the end; they still can't score. Laquan Treadwell 4 for 68. Like to see that. Happy for him. Marvin Jones 6 for 70. Marvin Jones had that issue with freaking Urban Meyer, and then Urban Meyer also called out. I can't remember who. And then the other thing was Mike Vrabel is the Tennessee Titans coach. I guess him and Urban Meyer coached together, but after the game, like Mike Vrabel came over to like kind of have words, and all. Urban Meyer gave him like a handshake, not even facing him or anything like.
No words were exchanged.
I don't really know what the hell's going on in Urban Meyer's brain currently.
Maybe he's depressed. Maybe he needs to seek some help.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems very checked out. Like I don't get it because it's his first year back in the NFL as a coach. Like he needs to be turning this franchise around. Yet he seems so incredibly disinterested. So I feel bad for the Jags. They really just don't have anything going for them. Hopefully Trevor Lawrence. The problem is Urban Meyer, and then if they do get rid of that Trevor Lawrence, we can actually see what he's capable of becoming.
Yeah, and shout out to Deontay Foreman, that 47 yards and a touchdown, just giving me 10 plus points from.
Got me in the playoffs.
Got me in the playoffs. So that was great to see from Foreman.
Happy for him. They have the Titans have the Steelers next week in Pittsburgh. So big game for both teams. The Jags actually get the matchup we just talked about for the battle of the shittiest teams. They play the Texans next week.
Oh, wow.
Hey, that'll be an interesting survivor pick if somebody decides to roll the dice on that one.
Yeah.
I definitely would fade the Jaguars. But yeah, so again, Tennessee's got a big matchup next week at Pittsburgh. Jags play the shitty Texans, so battle of shitty teams. Both teams probably trying to fight for that number 1 spot in terms of draft order. Let's take it to Kansas City, where the Chiefs just continue to stomp on the Raiders. 3 weeks ago, they stomped on the Raiders. Sunday they stomped on the Raiders 48-9.
Scorigami.
Another scorigami hits on the season, a unique score we've never seen in the NFL before. The Raiders are now 6-7. Chiefs are 9-4. Cover the 10-point spread, which I thought was too high when we had the preview episode. What did I know? Over 48 hits. I mean, this is the exact same thing I said when we talked about this preview is out of the last 4 or 5 weeks when the Chiefs offense was struggling but they were winning games, all teams were playing the same defensive coverage except the Raiders because the Raiders were sticking to their guns. They got torched for 41 points by the Chiefs the last time they played. What did they do? Did they learn their lesson? No, they fucking played the exact same single high defense and the Chiefs torched them.
Yeah, what's crazy for me is it wasn't even just aerial attack. It
No.
was the running game that won the game for the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill didn't do shit again. He just had a bunch of catches. Travis Kelce was non-existent, and they still found ways to win. So now they're just even just BDE all over the NFL, and this is not going to get flaccid anytime soon.
Yeah, and then the defense is stepping up as they have been.
God,
Tyrann
yeah.
Mathieu with the interception, fumble recovery. Mike Hughes gets a fumble recovery. So when you're beating the turnover battle, you're gonna win games.
And what's funny is that they're not just playing better defense. You can argue that they're playing the best defense out of anybody in the league over the last 4 weeks.
Yep.
So it's like
What a turnaround,
right?
Yeah.
Yep. 4 sacks to Derek Carr. We talked about their addition, Melvin Ingram, in the middle of the season. He had half a sack, so he's contributing there. Alex Okafor had a sack and a half, and Wharton also had 1 sack. So they were getting after Carr. He was dumping the ball off a lot. Jacobs had 5 for 46. Renfro, my God, 14 targets, 13 catches, 117 and a touchdown. That guy's literally emerged as a must-start fantasy
He's
football
just
player.
another Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
Like I feel like he's
The
got
way
the
he
same
made that
skill set.
touchdown was
Dude.
basically like exactly what Cooper Kupp does to
Yeah.
get touchdowns.
Yeah.
The in and the out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so incredibly impressive. He has solidified himself as a fantasy starter on this team. Derek Carr, again, underwhelming, like you talked about. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, only 37 yards, but did get in the end zone twice, so pretty relevant fantasy day. You talked about Josh Gordon early on, did get into the end zone. Backup running back Darrell Williams also got into the end zone, catching the ball. And then third-string running back Derek Gore with that 51-yarder
Huge
gets in
run.
the end zone.
In the fourth quarter.
And so, I mean, this game was 35-3 at the half. I mean, there was no point where this game was a game.
Yeah, no.
Start to finish, the Chiefs
it
just
wasn't.
dominated. The Raiders look like they don't want to be there. They play the Browns next week.
Well, the first play of the game was a fumble, right?
Yeah, Josh Jacobs fucking fumble, return for 6. So, I mean, that's as shitty a way as you can
Right.
start a game. So, I mean, it was literally all downhill from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to Newfoundland.
Just a real quick update.
Yep.
So Tyreek Hill hasn't done pretty much anything this year, right? But he's now surpassed his career high in receptions for a single season.
Damn.
And we're not even done with the season yet. So the volume is very high. It's just not end zone targets.
It's not aerial
So,
deep threats.
yeah.
Because the defenses are playing the safeties back. Yeah.
3-man deep.
They also have the most drops in the NFL.
Tyreek Hill has the most.
He
drops.
should, yeah. His
He
stats
should.
should be even better.
Well,
That's wild.
just the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, just the Chiefs in general have I think 30 drops, which leads the league in the NFL with Kelsey's on that list as the top droppers as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, the Chiefs have a big game on Thursday night at LA against the Chargers.
Yep.
So it'll be a battle of, offense versus big defense. And then we talked about the Raiders. They're traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. 2 teams that I just quite frankly could care less about. So that takes us to the next game. The New York Jets were hosting the Saints and Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill comes in, takes care of business, 30-9 final. Saints are now 6-7, still clawing for that 7th seed in the NFC. Jets are 3-10. Saints cover the 5.5 point spread. The under 43 hits. This game was, actually a little bit closer than the score indicates because Taysom Hill had that big run at the end. But otherwise, to me, not really anything impressive from the Saints offense. It was just the Jets aren't very good.
Yeah, you can't fall in this trap. Like, you can't fall into this. Like, you see 30-9, but the last, they scored all their points in the last 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, most of their points. So,
17 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and that's the scary part about starting Taysom Hill is like when it's against bad defenses, sure, he can break these free.
Right.
But you can't expect him to shoot it out. If they're ever down in any scenario, you're fucked. Like, you're screwed.
Yep.
Even the Cowboys, they were kind of close. It was a close game for a while. So that, helped out his fantasy. But if he's ever playing against a shooting out team, I wouldn't start him.
Funny you should mention that.
Yeah, because they play the Buccaneers next week. And
Yeah.
so that was the thing we were talking about. Should I start Justin Fields or do I start Taysom Hill next week? And that's who I have as options.
What option went away? Who did you have this whole time?
I was streaming, and I had Tua.
Oh, yeah. You had the Heineke's at one point.
Heineke at one point. So I was streaming quarterback all throughout the year.
For everyone that's listening, he was 1-7, made the playoffs, literally streaming one of the most important positions, quarterback. So
yeah, it's a quarterback.
That's pretty fucking impressive.
League as well. So, but I think the fact that Alvin Kamara being back for the Saints definitely helped them out, got their offense going. He had 120 yards. So that helps out. But Taysom Hill with the most garbage of garbage time touchdown ever. It's like 1 minute and 9 seconds left, and I think his players, his teammates were even like, "Go down, like run out the clock." But he saw daylight and he got the touchdown, and we were awarded with 20+ fantasy points by Taysom Hill. So that was it. But nothing from the Jets, right? No Elijah Moore.
Zach Wilson just 42 times he threw the ball, only completed it 19 times. He had the most rushing yards on the entire team with 33, and receiving core just very inconsistent, right? 1 week it's one guy, next week it's another guy. Jameson Crowder only 3 for 19. He was the big relevant guy in their receiving core, but I don't know. I mean, you just talked about it. Saints have to play the Bucs next week, so it's going to be a game where Taysom Hill is going to have to throw whether he likes it or not, right? Bucs do a good job of stopping the run. Their secondary is a little bit vulnerable. Tom Brady is not going to slow down at any point, it seems, this year, so the Saints are going to have to keep up. So it's going to be one of those things where he's going to be forced to throw the ball. It'll be interesting to see.
Just something of note, Josh Allen just ran for over 100 yards against the Buccaneers.
Okay.
So he might still be able to run. Like I expect the fantasy points to be there as far as running goes, but I'm not sure if the game goes out of hand early, if it's like 21-3, then it's going to be a lot of picks.
Yeah, at what point I mean, the weird thing with Taysom Hill is, what if the Saints get into a situation where it's 21-3? Is there any thought to Sean Payton being like, okay, like since we're gonna have to do nothing but throw, let's bring the other guy in, and like that's a huge, like you take a risk and start Taysom Hill in the playoffs, and that shit happens, that's fucking terrible. So
that's a good point.
It's definitely something to note because he's just such a hybrid quarterback. But it'll be good. It'll be interesting to see how he can respond at Tampa Bay next week. Jets are at the Dolphins, who have been surging, so it's not an easy matchup for them. The next game on the board was a big divisional matchup. Cowboys were at Washington to take on the football team. Cowboys steal this one 27-20. Cowboys are now 9-4, sitting pretty atop the NFC East. They should have that division, barring some crazy last 3-4 week meltdown. Washington football team, who is surging, they're now 6-7, but they are still the 7th seed in the NFC. Dallas does cover the 4.5-point spread, under 48 hits. What'd you guys see in this one?
I don't think that Dak Prescott played that great of a game as he should have. He definitely allowed the Washington football team to kind of be close into this game, especially that interception pick six at the end of the game. All signs were pointing for a comeback for Washington football team, and they just didn't let it happen because Heineke wasn't in there. Allen comes in and he gets sacked, and that was sort of the end of the game. But no, Washington football team put up a fight, but just wasn't good enough at the end of the game to close it out.
Yeah, another game, a tale of two halves, right? I mean, Dallas putting up 24 points in the first half, 24-0 at half. They only scored 3 in the second half, and Washington scored 20 points late. So, what'd you see, Shishot?
Same stuff. Nothing really that stands out. Cowboys defense is for real. At least their defensive ends.
Dude, they're scary.
Yeah, dude, Micah Parsons is playing lights out.
Micah Parsons is literally, I mean, at this point, he should win Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And he's a rookie.
At least the NFC Defensive Player of the Year.
And apparently it's easy for him.
He said the NFL is not hard.
I mean, the way he's playing, it looks like it's easy. Because like I have him in my fantasy football league, my IDP league, right? So I'm watching him always. He gets the quarterback like every 2 plays. But the fact is, nothing gets recorded in the stat sheet because the hurries don't count as points. But he's always on their ass. Even if the ball's released, I feel like he's not one of those players that stops just moving forward. Like he's always just finishing what he has to do. And even in this game, if you watched, there's plays where he was like 30 yards down the field as a defensive
end. He's never giving up on plays. Yeah, right? He's constantly everywhere.
So that's great for the Cowboys. But yeah, this defense is starting to get things together, at least in the front seven. Cornerbacks are still very much suspect. They were really lucky that Terry McLaurin got injured at halftime because this late surge that the Washington Reds football team were doing would have been different if Terry McLaurin was there. And the Cowboys cornerbacks are just not good enough besides the one guy that we always talk about. So, yeah, the Cowboys are 9-4, looking great. They're definitely the best team in that division now. But it's still I still want to see a shootout between them and like the Cardinals or, the Packers because I still don't think they're as good as those teams.
Yeah, having to go toe-to-toe with the premier of the NFC, it's still something that it's like Dallas has to prove to us that they're capable, and so we're not going to see that until it actually happens. So, yeah, we're always going to have our reservations, but you talked about it. Their defensive line is scary as hell, right? Not only did they draft Micah Parsons and they moved him to edge rusher, and he's like literally become a revelation, 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, two quarterback hits. DeMarcus Lawrence is now back. Right?
Yeah.
And he's been a fucking beast before. 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits there. And then big man Randy Gregory is finally off the weed, so he had a sack and 1 quarterback pressure as well. So like that trio is insane. Randy Gregory, when he played for Nebraska, was a first-round projection, but because he smoked a lot of weed, he kept dropping. And then he kept smoking weed the last 3 years, kept getting suspended. Now that he's, I guess, I don't know what he's doing, but he might be off of it. That's literally Gregory, Lawrence, and Micah Parsons are 3 premier rushers. Yeah. And so it allows that secondary that's leaky to get by because the quarterback doesn't have enough time to throw.
Yeah, that also helps how bad they're playing on the run game. Yeah. So the Cowboys have allowed 100 or more rushing yards in 8 straight games for the first time since 2000. Damn. So they got weaknesses. They're very much evident if you look deep enough. If you just look past their skill set that they have, they got very big holes, and that's one of them. They are allowing runs to pretty much anybody besides Gibson because he sucks. But yeah, and then 2 more things on the offensive side that also make me not want to put them at the top tier is that Zeke has now had fewer than 50 rushing yards in 5 straight games. Like he's in a decline. It's just like I can argue this.
Well, and this is as evident as it gets, right? Because the argument was always Pollard, Zeke, Pollard. Pollard literally didn't play. Yeah. Corey Clement got 1 more carry than Zeke. Yeah. So it's clear that even if Zeke's the healthy guy between Pollard and him, they're still not going to give Zeke a full workload.
Yeah. I mean, there are still talks that Zeke is still hurt. Yeah. But we talked about that last time. Yeah. Like, I mean, you're hurting your own team if you can't just admit that you're injured. Right. But that's not the point. The point is there's a clear decline here with Elliott, right? And then as far as the quarterback situation, like the two most powerful aspects of their game, Dak Prescott has now had sub 80 passer rating in 4 of his last 6 games. He had 0 in the first 6 games of the season. So he's also not playing that well. Right. So this is like, their records are fine. They're beating teams, but they're beating teams that are like worse than them, clearly. Yep. And then they can't run the ball as well, and they can't throw the ball as well, and they're allowing a lot of running plays. Something's got to fix there. Like you can see the standings. You can see them sitting pretty at 9-4, but I see a lot of holes.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I'm not sold on Dallas, right? Like you said, they have flashy players that make opportunistic, plays, but as a whole, there's a ton of weaknesses and there's ways to expose that defense.
Yeah, I feel like if they would have closed out the game, not let Washington football team kind of get close to it, then maybe this would be a different conversation. Sure. Yeah. But we're just not seeing that.
Yeah, and again, it's not like they have a tough schedule. They're at the Giants next week, but that's a divisional game, right? So they need to take care of business, take advantage of the week schedule. The football team also is traveling within the division, take on Philly next week. So both these teams, we checked their schedule ahead of time. They have a lot of divisional games to round out. I think Washington plays the last 4 games in the division. So
right. Eagles,
yeah,
Cowboys.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of interdivisional games between the 4 of these. But it seems like, again, unless Dallas has a crazy meltdown, there's no reason they shouldn't come away atop that division. That takes us to the next game on the board. Carolina was hosting Atlanta this week. Carolina came into this game 2.5-point favorites. Over-under was sitting at 41.5, but Atlanta comes away victorious. 29-21 final. Atlanta's now 6-7. They're still in the thick of things with that 6-7 spot in the NFC. Carolina now drops to 5-8. It's going to make it extremely tough. They're going to have to probably run the table. But 29-21 final. Atlanta, as the Dogs, wins outright over 41.5. Disappointing. I expected more from the Panthers defense. I expect them to be the reason that they could cover the spread and win this game and still be in the thick of things. But Atlanta is the one that's like, hey, take us seriously. We're 5-2 on the road. We're 6-7. We're the same record as other guys you guys consider contenders. So take us seriously. They come away victorious.
Yeah, for me, Cam Newton kind of just messed up. Yeah, he tripped 2 times during 3rd downs, like crucial. I think one was a 4th down. I don't remember exactly, but he tripped. Nobody touched him. Big plays, big first downs needed to be made. There's a lot of those are the reasons the Falcons got the ball more, and also the pick 6. Throwing the pick 6 and. Although he did score a touchdown running the ball and he had some chemistry with DJ Moore, that chemistry just started to decline throughout the game. He started tripping. The coaches saw that, and they were like, let's pull this guy. He's not going to win this game for us. So then brought in the backup, who did pretty okay. He didn't do, he was 6 for 12 with a touchdown, and he also threw a pick. But that was when they were making a slight comeback at the end. It just didn't go well as planned. Falcons solidified the game. They did a great job running the ball. They ran the ball a lot. I forgot what the exact numbers
36
were.
carries between the four.
Yeah, Patterson and Davis, and they both, averaged around like 3.5 to 4 yards per carry. Nothing exciting. This game wasn't like the most exciting game, but it was nice to see the Falcons kind of like have the edge over another team for a change.
Yeah. I think you said it exactly perfect, right? This was a game I think all three of us came in and thought Carolina's on paper the better team. So one team has to solidify themselves in the playoff contention, and one team's going to fall out. And I think we all thought it was Carolina at home, better defense, and the Falcons just had too many inefficiencies. But like we talked about, Cordero Patterson, just gets in the end zone, finds ways to be productive. Hayden Hurst caught their one touchdown pass. And, as long as Matt Ryan is not, putting the defense in shitty situations, I think that they're decent enough to give themselves a chance.
Yeah, I was watching this game closely on Red Zone because it's turned there in that witching hour.
Yeah,
and I love that because all these games, they are like maybe 2 scores apart, and then sort of like 7 minutes in the game left in the game, and then it's like turns into a 1 touchdown game. Same thing with this game, right? It was only 8 points. I believe the Falcons had the ball, and it was 3rd and 10, and Kyle Pitts was wide open towards the left of the field, gets the catch, gets the first down, and they're not able to get the ball back. So it's like things like that, like the Falcons are able to do. You mentioned it last week's show. You said that the Falcons find ways to score the ball, and which is exactly what they did there. Even though the Panthers defense is known to be good, wasn't able to come through, and the Falcons just got to get the win by finding ways to score.
Yeah. The Panthers offense just didn't do a good enough job of letting the defense do what they normally do. Just bad. Cam Newton should just give his reins up. Go be an offensive coach somewhere. Do something. But you're really limiting the team by not being able to be this accurate passer. Why don't you use your youngsters? This is a clear-cut example. Yep. I know they're in a win now mentality, but I don't know if they're going to win games at Cam Newton.
Well, they haven't.
Yeah,
in the last
he's 0-11.
He's 0-11.
Yeah, the last 11 starts.
Yeah, and for the Panthers. Yeah,
and like you said, they just didn't do enough. Right, 4 of 11 on 3rd down, 1 of 3 on 4th down. They had 3 turnovers to 1 turnover. They threw 2 interceptions. They lost 1 fumble, and time of possession for a team that's supposed to be like a running team. Yeah. They got out time of possessed by 10 minutes. So it's just game script wise. It seems like it should have gone their way, but it didn't. And I think a lot of that falls on Cam Newton. So it is unfortunate because the Panthers fan base is so Cam Newton, right? They love Cam Newton. He's like the best thing they've ever seen. Yeah. But unfortunately, I think this is it. I don't know. Yeah, I think they need to move on. I think they need to just start playing other people, give other people chances, and at this point, move forward to next season. So
another thing is that lets you know that the offense is the problem. The Panthers are 0-18 in games when allowing 22 or more points. That's not that much.
No,
that's not that much in the NFL. If you just score more than 22 points, you lose. Or when you just allow more than 22, you lose. That's then the Vikings would fucking be 0-30.
13. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They have nothing on the offensive side to keep up with teams, and this is the product of having Cam Newton. You need a more dynamic thrower on this team.
Sliver of hope for Falcon fans, right? D-Rod, shout out. They are 5-2 on the road. We know that if they squeak into the playoffs, they're not going to be hosting a game, right? So for whatever reason, they're playing decently on the road. Let's not look at who they've played. 5-2 on the road in the NFL, winning on the road, don't care who you play, is tough to do. So for all of their inefficiencies, all of the shittiness that comes with the Falcons, and sometimes they're kind of unwatchable, they're winning games on the road.
Everybody's rooting for the Falcons for many reasons. And the best reason is that if I'm a team that wants to play a team in the playoffs, I want to play the Falcons. Yeah. Right. Give me the Falcons. Yep. Let's go Falcons.
Yeah, they're at the 49ers next week, so it's going to be tough for them to stay in playoff contention unless they can, run the table or at least go 3-1. The Panthers are at Buffalo, so for that fact, I just think Carolina's chances are done for the season, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Let's take it to the next game in Houston, where Seattle came into town and won the game they should have won. 33-13 final. They take care of business. 8.5 point spread they cover with ease, over 40.5 hits. Shishot, this was your survivor pick, so congrats on going 11-3. Russell Wilson actually made a lot of big time throws. I know it's the Texans, but we need things to be encouraged about when it comes to Russell Wilson. And him and Tyler Lockett look like old school connection.
Is there a better duo than Russell Wilson and
Scary
Tyler
shit.
Lockett? It's like crazy.
It's so consistent.
The deep bombs are always like it always hits.
Yeah.
Always hits.
I feel like I don't see incompletions when he throws deep to Lockett.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. I don't even think the touchdown was like a deep pass, right? It was like a
there was a deep touchdown too, right?
Wasn't a
there?
slant that made Lockett open in the touchdown to get the touchdown there. No, it's good to see them kind of getting their offense back to where they are. Where's DK Metcalf though?
It was a 55-yard deep.
Oh, it was a 55-yard deep.
Was it?
Yeah.
The Everett one was a short one.
Yeah, Everett one was a slant.
Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, no. Where's DK Metcalf and all this? I'm shocked.
I would love to like understand what the hell is going on. Like you have this talent. This like there's nobody built like DK Metcalf in the NFL, and they just use him for deep bombs or like what do they use him for?
Nothing. They use him for nothing. 4 catches, 43 yards. He usually goes an entire first half without catching the ball. So it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't really know what's happening. They won this game. Lockett and Russell Wilson just have this connection that is unmatchable. Rashad Penny ran the shit out of the ball, so big game for him. 16 carries, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. But as a DK Metcalf fantasy owner, it's so frustrating because Seattle goes 3 and out a lot, right? They go 3 and out a lot. They don't extend a lot of drives, so it's just less opportunities for DK.
So the big bombs
and
are
the
what
big bombs
matters.
are always what matters, and it's always going to Lockett.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it here. It's not like he's not getting the targets.
No.
He's got 8 targets. It should be more. It should be like 15. But he's got 8 targets, 4 catches. Tyler Lockett has 9 targets, 5 catches. It just so happens that Lockett ones are 55-yard bomb touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly.
And then DK Metcalf's are like slant.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. For a guy that literally has what 4.3 speed, something crazy,
Yeah.
like 4.4 speed probably.
he's taller than
It's like
everybody
6'4",
that guards him.
6'5".
He's
Yeah.
he's
Fast
taller and faster than
than
Lockett.
everybody.
I think. Like Lockett's quick, but I think speed wise, DK's probably running a better 40.
DK's faster than almost everybody,
Yeah.
right? Like he's faster than any defender that guards him, and he's taller than any defender that guards him. Why not just throw it to him deep?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
But Davis Mills had a pretty good game, right? We talked about that earlier. He had actually 14 consecutive passes before he went not so great after that. 19 of 35. But he started off strong.
Yeah.
So, I mean, better than what Trevor Lawrence
Yeah,
did.
exactly.
But they didn't have any run game. There's what? Who's there?
Rex-
I mean, okay, we
wasn't
shit on
bad.
Rex Burkhead. Look at Royce Freeman. 11 carries, 15 yards.
It's pretty bad.
Why the fuck is the coach calling out Rex Burkhead?
Why did they get rid of Phil Lindsay?
I don't understand.
That did nothing for like their financial loss. Like,
It makes no sense.
And Ingram, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Ingram.
Yeah,
I bet Ingram. They probably did something under the table. He's like, I want to go to the Saints.
Yeah.
I'm gonna retire with the Saints. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But like Phil Lindsay was worth nothing. You had him for nothing, and then you just got rid of him for nothing.
I don't know. Brandon Cooks, productive, right? You like that 8 for 101, 11 targets. But yeah, I mean, Davis Mills, for how bad this lopsided this score looks, Davis Mills wasn't really the reason, right? I mean, Texans are just not good enough.
Yeah.
Davis Mills to protect the football, to not have a single turnover, no fumbles, no interceptions, was only sacked 2 times, right? You have to, be pleasantly surprised. And like, it's like, what more can you ask from a no-name rookie quarterback?
Yeah.
So Seattle at least takes care of business. We know they're going to have to run the table to have any chance in the playoffs, to get into the playoffs, and they are traveling to LA to take on the Rams next week. So, their playoff hopes could look really, really dark as soon as next week. The Texans, we talked about it. They're going to have the toilet bowl of the season at Jacksonville next week. So,
One last thing.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that the Seahawks have now scored 30 or more points in 2 straight games.
Damn.
Because it was looking pretty bad.
Yeah.
So now they're putting up points. So it's gonna rely on the defense again.
Yeah. Again, it's gonna be this window for them is really, really slim, and every week's a must win, and their season could end as early as next week. I mean, at the Rams is gonna be really, really tough.
Yeah.
Divisional game though, and you never want to count out Russell Wilson, especially if even incrementally he might be getting better with that mallet finger. So the next game on the board, the Denver Broncos hosted the Detroit Lions in Mile High, took care of business with ease, 38-10 final. Denver covers the 10-point spread, over 42 hits. Shove it, your survivor pick was the Broncos at home. Congratulations, you are now 9-5. All Denver, all day long.
Yeah, all Denver running all day long. Melvin Gordon, who I thought Javonte Williams would be should have been the number 1 running back there, proved me wrong. 24 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. Williams did get his as well. He's got 73 yards and a touchdown too. But this is just kind of like Broncos, like basic.
This Chubb and Hunt situation.
Yeah, right.
Like they're
Like,
both gonna eat always because they they get thrown to more than their wide receivers. Like, this is a perfect formula for like running back success.
Right. Yeah. And then Bridgewater, 18 for 25, just does like what he needs to do. Gets 2 touchdowns to help them win the game.
Protects the football. Yeah.
Maybe do a little bit more though, Bridgewater. Maybe do like a little bit more.
I was actually kind of surprised with the running game for Detroit. I didn't see that coming. Craig Reynolds.
Craig Reynolds.
Yeah,
sorry. Nobody saw that coming.
11 for 83. I had Igwebuike.
No.
Been practicing that name.
Yeah.
And I started him only 8 carries, 25 yards. So I guess that
experiment is now over.
Exactly. So
yeah, their running back should slowly start to get healthier. So I don't know how much these guys will play relevance as the season winds down. But Khalif Raymond had the 1 touchdown catch. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 for 73. But, you know, what the story of Detroit is the story of Detroit. They got their 1 win out of the way. They're not going to have a winless season, and I don't think they're going to win another game.
What do we have their schedule up? Or
I mean, they play the Cardinals next week, so that's already going to be really, really tough.
I almost want to start one of the Detroit receivers. Cardinals, like if you don't have any options, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna be down against the Cardinals, is what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And Amon-Ra St. Brown or even Josh Reynolds may not be a bad.
If you're gonna start one, you gotta start St. Brown.
St. Brown.
Yeah, you have to. The targets differential is way too high.
Right. This is true.
As someone
12 targets as opposed to 5.
As someone who at some point was so desperate that they picked up Amon-Ra St. Brown and started him with a lot of promise, and that was the 1 week he had no catches. So it is Detroit, so take that risk where you will. But if you are desperate, I mean, St. Brown does get looked at.
It's really hard to be desperate as in the wide receiver position
if you're in the playoffs, right?
Because there's no way you would have been doing good with a weak wide receiver too. Like,
yeah, I'm in this position where I just picked up running backs and running backs only. Now I'm like using the same 2 receivers I have.
Who are your receivers, real quick?
It's Devontae Smith and then Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, okay, so Deontay Johnson's a must start.
You need more targets than Devontae Smith.
Yeah,
gets.
Smith just doesn't get enough targets.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean that is an interesting position for sure. But yeah, I mean Detroit really nothing to be even talked about. They're now 1-11-1. They take on the Cardinals next week at home. Who cares where they play? They're probably not going to win. The Broncos take on the Bengals next week. 2 7-6 teams fighting for that playoff spot. So actually a pretty good contest there. The next game on the board was the LA Chargers. They were at home hosting the New York Giants, who came into town. Chargers take care of business. Their offense couldn't be stopped. 37-21 final. Chargers were my survivor pick here. Chargers covered the 10-point spread over 43 hits. I mean, it's the same story. The Chargers play bad teams and they beat bad teams, and their offense looks really good against bad teams.
Yeah, and against those teams, Justin Herbert 7-0 with a over 100 passer rating. So if the matchup's good, you can expect good things to happen from the Chargers offense.
Yeah, I mean it sucks because the Giants have notably not been good at offense, and they're playing a Chargers defense they allow a lot of points to opposing teams. But they only come up with 21 points. Glennon, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception. So not the best showing for the Giants either. But one of the best things for the Chargers here is Guyton. Guyton and Palmer with Allen out. Those would have been great pickups if you did start them. Both got a touchdown. So solid game from them. So
yeah, they have a lot of weapons on that offense. I'm not worried about unless Herbert goes down. Anybody else can go down and they can figure it out. Besides Eckler, obviously. But even then, we've seen in the past
Kelly's and shit.
Yeah, they can just work together to make it up.
Yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, those guys are underrated, right? We in what flash in a pan we've seen from Jalen Guyton and Palmer. They both showed signs. They're very capable. They love Guyton deep. They even threw one deep to Palmer. So it doesn't matter who's running the routes. Herbert likes to throw the ball deep. They like airing it out. Mike Williams got 6 for 61. Palmer led the team 7 targets. Williams had 6. But Eckler did his thing, 12 for 67 and a touchdown. Caught 2 for 17. Big game from Herbert. On the Giants side, again, Saquon was there, but, he did have a touchdown catch, so that was his relevant fantasy day, 16 for 64 on the ground. And then, again, it's always a sad day when Kyle Rudolph leads your receiving corps with 66 yards receiving. I mean, the Giants are now 1-6 on the road. They're 4-9. They play the Cowboys next week, so I think for them, they're just about playing spoiler to end the season because playoffs are out of the contention for them.
Right.
Or they're tanking and trying to get a better draft pick, but nobody really likes to openly tank. And the Chargers have that big matchup. We talked about it. We'll preview that game because it is going to be a big one. They are going to be at home against the Chiefs. So that is going to be a big game. The next game on the board, the 49ers and Bengals. This was a great game. Cincinnati was the home team. 49ers come into town and win this game 26-23 final. San Francisco was a 1.5 point favorite, so they do cover that. And the over-under pushes exactly at 49. Big game, right? San Francisco on the road, traveling from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast, which, in enough football seasons that we've watched, we know that can come into factor and play a big role. But it didn't matter. It did not matter for the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo, clean game, played a good game of football. He was sacked quite a bit, but didn't throw an interception. Their running game was just sufficient enough with Deebo Samuel being healthy. The couple of times they used him are always effective. So they took care of business. I mean, what did you guys see here?
They got very close to not taking care of business. It's a tale of two halves again, right? So I was actually surprised that this game even went into overtime. Joe Burrow had been sacked 5 times throughout the game. I don't think they really got much going on their running the ball, partly because they were down most of the game. So 49ers had this game won and kind of just took a step back in the fourth quarter, allowed them to score 14 points, go into overtime, but then end up winning in overtime. But yeah, it was closer than it should have been for the 49ers.
Yeah, they missed the field goal, right? They had the game won. There was like a minute left. They missed a 47-yard field goal. But outside of that, I mean, I think the main focus. Oh, by the way we previewed this game was like exactly right. Big days from the receivers on the Bengals side. A lot of running. George Kittle coming back from the dead to just take
insane.
Dude, this is like, I think, like, I've always argued with my friends when George Kittle came to the NFL. It was like 2018 or something like that. That he was better than Kelsey. And then Kelsey just shat on Kittle's numbers because of the volume on that offense. But I think, just from a straight up football standpoint, there's nothing George Kittle can't do.
Correct.
There's a lot of things Kelsey can't do, but there's nothing George Kittle can't do. And that is the most valuable person on this team. Yeah.
I mean, again, I think from a receiving standpoint, like I don't know how you can even say Kelsey's better, or like you could say they're about the same, right? But what Kittle brings to the running game, his blocking, I mean, that he blocks as better than like probably half of the fucking Vikings offensive linemen. I mean, it's insane. And now like the volume is ridiculous, right? Deebo Samuel is supposed to be their best receiver, but they love to run with him seldomly.
One target.
And, he had 1 target for 22 yards, but Kittle had 15 targets.
I don't ever want to see this offense on the field. Like, talk about game plan against the Eagles. Like, how the hell are you game planning against this?
They're terrifying.
Like, they're not even. What is this? How do I prepare for this? I prepared all week to stop Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel's not even. He gets 1 target. What the hell? And we did talk about how Deebo, like, I remember on our preview episode, I was like, Deebo Samuel should probably get around 10 carries. He got 8 carries and touchdown because, there is a clear line between Elijah Mitchell and then the rest of them.
100%.
Right? When Elijah Mitchell's there, he's getting 20-plus touches. When the other running backs are there, they're getting 13 to 15. So that's one thing to just keep note. If Elijah Mitchell's playing, Deebo Samuel's probably not getting 8 carries. So just keep.
And they're using Elijah Mitchell more on all 3 downs as well when he's playing. Jeff Wilson literally doesn't see the field on 3rd down.
Right.
So
it's hasty time.
It's hasty time. So T. Higgins, you talked about it, Shishot. He is talented as shit. 5 for 114 on 7 targets. Leads the way for the Bengals. Jamar Chase 5 for 77 did get in the end zone twice. So big time plays. In the clutch, in crunch time, Joe Burrow loves to look at that connection with Jamar Chase. But again, they fall short. They're now 3-4 at home, right? Teams that can't win at home, it is always kind of a concern. They're 7-6. They're still fighting for that playoff spot. San Francisco is in the playoff spot. San Francisco gets an easy, or I shouldn't say easy. Let's take the Falcons seriously. San Francisco plays the Falcons next week at home, and the Bengals are traveling to Mile High to take on a tough test in the Broncos. So both matchups are going to have playoff implications. So stay tuned for those. Next game on the board was one of the marquee matchups we saw this week. The Bills traveled to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Early on, this looked like it was going to be a rout by Tampa Bay. They clawed their way back in. Again, this week's theme seems like a tale of 2 halves. Buffalo showed up in the second half, took this thing to overtime, but Tom Brady said, hell nah. And
wait a minute.
He clutched this out in overtime, finding Brashad Perriman for a 58-yard walk-off touchdown, his only catch of the game. What a fucking game. Tampa Bay covers a 3.5-point spread. The over 54, you said it last podcast. Hammer the over and have fun with it, and that's exactly what happened. The over hit. So, big, exciting game. What did you guys see and like?
Yeah, Josh Allen now is become one of the 3 players in NFL history to throw for over 300 yards and rush 100 yards in the same game, joined by Cam Newton and Russell Wilson. Yep. So quite a great stat there. But yeah, I mean that you basically said everything you needed to be said there. I mean, there's a tale of 2 halves. Buccaneers did really well in the first half. Josh Allen did good in the second half, and you leave Tom Brady to win the ball game, and that's what Tom Brady does. Wins the ball game.
Yeah. There are a couple of things. I know there's a lot of good stats on Josh Allen's side. Here's one that you kind of need to keep on the back of your mind when you talk about best quarterbacks in the league. Josh Allen is now 2 for 13 in his career when trailing at any point in the game by more than 10 points. That's the longest. That's the largest deficit out of all the starting quarterbacks currently in the NFL. So if he's down by 10 points, you're not going to win the game. Is basically what I'm getting from that.
Yeah, that's tough. You want a guy that can come from behind, especially with the talent level that Allen is supposed to possess. So
the one thing is, I think you mentioned this earlier. They just don't run the ball
ever.
Matt Breida was the first running back to run the ball, and it was like in the middle of the third quarter. Yep. So all the rushes were from Josh Allen, and then that was it. So I'm not really sure why they're doing that, but
against the Buccaneers, I can see that argument because no team does well. Like no running backs do well against the Buccaneers, right?
Sure.
So they were like, let's just take the efficiency out of this or the inefficiency out of it, and let's just use more efficient plays. Which I get it, but it wasn't translating as well as they had hoped. But what are you going to do? They figured out a way to take it to overtime against the best quarterback of all time.
Right.
They did pretty okay. I can't really argue that they should have ran the ball more here because it's not like they didn't run the ball. They just ran it with the quarterback, right? So the running plays are still there.
And they're working. I mean, Allen not averaging 9 yards a carry. Yeah. Singletary had 4 carries, but 13, ran at 15 yard or 13 yard average.
Yeah.
So the seldom times they run, it works. But I don't think they dig themselves in such a big hole in the first half if they don't. Had they just established the run to some extent,
Of course.
So that does seem like it can be this team's Achilles heel. They're now 7-6, guys. I mean, this team that was once donned as a top of the AFC, one of the biggest contenders for the Super Bowl. I mean, they're one game out of being 500.
Yeah, they can't stop the run. They can't stop the run. Period. That's not a Super Bowl winning team. Every Super Bowl winning team has a lot of different goods and bads about them, but they can all stop the run. You can manage the game. You have to be ahead of your team. Like when you're playing one versus the other, Super Bowl winning teams are rarely ever the underdogs.
Yeah.
Right. And Bills are definitely underdogs when they play teams like the Buccaneers, the Packers. So figure out a way to stop the run. And I think next week they have a good chance of doing that. I forgot who they play.
Chuba
Hubbard's probably screwed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the other side, Tom Brady did his thing, 363 in the air, 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette just continues to have an insane season, man.
Yeah.
This guy needs to be taken seriously. 19 for 113 on the ground, scores a touchdown. Brady rushes one in as well. Like, what the fuck can't Tom Brady do at this stage?
He ran like for 11 yards rushing.
When's the last time you saw Tom Brady have 7 carries?
No, dude. I would have.
Is that a career high? Because I'm almost willing to bet that has to
definitely
be.
a career high.
Yeah.
He wants his Madden rating increase now.
Big time. He's all over Twitter talking about that shit. I by the way, I love this new personality Tom Brady that's come out recently.
Yeah.
He's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, when he got 7 rings, I will say some funny
shit. And the
too.
music that he has on the background of these videos, it gets me pumped up every single time.
He's got a great ass TikTok editor, the guy he's paying.
Just the man, dude. He's just the man.
Chris Godwin, great again, 10 catches, 105 yards. Mike Evans had 6 for 91, and that touchdown was pretty damn impressive. The route he ran, Tom Brady literally threw that thing like 50 miles an hour, and Evans high pointed that. So impressive catch. Gronk 5 for 62. I talked about Perriman getting that one big touchdown. That was the difference. But yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay now 10-3, 6-0 at home. A team that most likely is going to host games at home in the playoffs. They have yet to lose. So big recipe for success there. They do take on the Saints next week. Divisional matchup. Tampa Bay is obviously going to be favored, but it's no slouch. We talked about the Bills. They take on the Panthers next week. So the Bills need to get right. They need to win games like this next week and try to claw their way back into that playoff spot because, I don't think anybody still wants to play the Bills in the playoffs, but at the same time, Buffalo needs to take care of the business that they can take care of.
Honestly, I take that back earlier about the Chuba thing.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to just start Chuba.
Yeah.
Just because of how bad, you allowed 5 touchdowns to Jonathan Taylor on the run.
Yeah.
Last week was bad. This week was bad. And the Panthers are a run-first team, right?
Yeah.
Cam Newton might be a good play there, too. I don't know. It might be a Taysom Hill kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because the Bills' defense is definitely not what people think they are.
No. That takes us to Sunday night, guys. The Packers were at home hosting a big divisional game against the Chicago Bears. Packers, high-scoring affair. This first half was insane compared to the second half. Wild halves has been the theme. 45-30. What a fucking high-scoring game. The Packers come away victorious. 15-point win, so that means they cover the 2.5-point spread. The over-under was 43, and the Packers covered that themselves. So, big scoring game. Packers are now 10-3, and they have the number one spot in the NFC. The Bears are now 4-9. They're out of the playoffs, so they are just looking to play spoiler. This statistically, there was a ton of awesome stats for fantasy owners in this game.
Yeah, so we missed the first quarter of this game, most of it because we were at a wedding. Mm-hmm. And then I opened it up on my phone, so we got to watch the whole second quarter and most of the third quarter. There was only 3 points in the first quarter. There were only 10 points in the fourth quarter. The second quarter that we got to see was just jam-packed with touchdowns.
45 points.
Yeah, 45 of these points. The covering the
over.
The over just all happened in that one quarter. So, yeah, it was a great game. It was great Justin Fields' day to watch. He wasn't super efficient. He was 18 for 33 with 2 touchdowns and 2 picks, but he made some crazy throws. He made some deep throws that, he seemed patient. He was getting rid of the ball quickly as well. There's a lot of things. And he ran the ball efficiently, 9 carries for 74 yards. Helped out Montgomery's numbers there by dumping it off to him 7 times for 6 catches, which is something that he hadn't done before.
Yeah.
We were concerned as Montgomery owners. But if this game wasn't so out of hand, in the third quarter, Green Bay basically just said, you're not running the ball anymore. It would have been even better than it looks right now. It would have been much closer. And, fantasy galore. What more do you want from your players besides a game like this?
Yeah, Justin Fields has scored at least 20.1 points in the last 3 complete games that he's played.
Okay.
So ever since that San Francisco 49ers game, he's had some pretty good numbers as far as fantasy is concerned. But you're right, Aaron Rodgers still owns the Bears.
Yeah.
And as he did with 4 touchdowns. So just demolishing it. Devontae Adams had a great game.
Freak.
Just natural Green Bay stuff.
Another week where somebody mocks the discount double check and then Rodgers makes him pay.
When will people stop being dumbasses?
I don't know, man.
You go step on the freaking Chiefs freaking logo at their house and now you're doing discount double check to freaking Rodgers? Come on.
You don't do that.
When will you learn? When will you learn?
One more thing, though. Aaron Jones is definitely not benefiting from any of the stuff I'm talking about because he did get into the end zone once, so that kind of gave his fantasy numbers a little bit of a touch there.
Yeah.
But he's getting out-touched by A.J. Dillon most of the last few games. So as a fantasy owner of Aaron Jones, I'm sorry, but this is not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, A.J. Dillon had 3 times the carries he did. Jones, relevant, like you said, touchdown and rushing, and he also caught a touchdown. So I don't think you can expect 2 touchdowns from Jones on a weekly basis, especially as a running back you probably drafted in the early second round, and he has 5 carries. Heading into the playoffs, that's definitely concerning. Very, very concerning.
A little worrisome.
The other thing about this, and I'm invested in it because I'm trying to find a receiver of
Lazard.
Yeah, Lazard or Valdez Scantling. I feel like either one of those guys could be
if you beat him and I play you next week, I would love for you to start any of those guys. Let's make sure it's MVS.
With no Randall Cobb, though, right? If Randall Cobb's playing, then obviously you don't start any of them. But as a number 2 receiver for the Packers, I feel like you can find some value in Lazard.
Yeah. You can. I think there's a ton of value, but the problem becomes which one is it going to be on the given week, right? Because MVS has had that opportunity so many times.
2 years.
Yeah. And then there's some games where he'll catch 3 bombs, and then there'll be a lot of games where he does nothing. Lazard seems like a better intermediary guy.
Definitely a better intermediary.
But again, the consistency isn't there, right? Adams gets his, and then it's who else? So yeah, if you want to try to flip a coin and see which one you could pick, I'm with you. The number 2 receiver on an offense that has Aaron Rodgers is definitely valuable. Yeah. But who is that guy going to be on any given week is the question. So.
And they're playing the Ravens next week, which is in the middle of the pack of receiver points.
At Baltimore next week. So
Lazard. If you're debating between Lazard and MVS,
Lazard.
Yeah, I think MVS has a boom or bust type. Potential.
If it's Monday night and you need 17 points, it's not Lazard.
Yeah.
Then you just bank on MVS to get his 60-yard touchdown.
Yeah, right.
But if you need 5 points, I'm going Lazard.
Yeah. If you need some solid points, Lazard. But yeah, you said the Packers are taking on the Ravens at Baltimore next week. The Bears are hosting the Vikings on Monday night next week. So big games there. Speaking of Monday night, this week's Monday night game was a doozy. The Cardinals were at home hosting the Rams. Big divisional game. Arizona has had all the momentum. They were number one atop the NFC before this game, but the Rams came out and balled. 30-23 final. The Rams actually win this one on the road. They were favored by 2.5 on the road, so they do cover that. Over under was 51, just creeps over at 53 points. The story of this game was, to me, the quarterback play. One quarterback played a little bit better than the other quarterback. Kyler Murray, not one of his better games.
No, definitely not. I don't know what exactly the problem was for him, but he wasn't. He was still scrambling.
Yeah.
He was still good old Kyler Murray making plays, stretching plays. He made that crazy throw running to the sideline. And that's usually when people just toss it out of bounds or whatnot. But he made that play right on money. So he's got the skill was there. I think the Rams defense it's always been good. It's not like the Rams are bad. They're just not who we think they are. Yeah. The Rams aren't the best defense in the league because they have 2 players or 3 players now. Yeah. But they're molding together in the right time. But I think the topic of discussion right now is that the Cardinals are 10-3, but those 3 losses have been at home, so they can't win at home.
Yeah.
They're 3-3 at home, and I don't know. They're still the team to beat. I've been saying the Packers are the team to beat, and I still do think the Packers are the team to beat. But the Cardinals aren't very far behind, and with Edmonds coming back, they just become more dynamic.
Another weapon to add to that offense.
But you can't be losing at home like 3 times as your only losses.
I gotta say kudos to Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald. For 3 sacks in that game. The
first game of the game, first play of the game, and the last play of the game.
And the last play of the game. Which that last play of the game was ridiculous. Yeah. Kyler Murray should have spiked that ball. Yeah. And because the receivers had no idea what he was doing. He's like, what play are you calling? Yeah. And then they try to run it. Like
very uncharacteristic.
Yeah, that was dumb. And even went backwards and he kind of just fell. You never fall, dude. You're fucking Kyler Murray.
Right. Try to run around or do something.
That was very sus.
But again, they had a chance to win the game, but couldn't do it because
got the onside kick, right?
Got the onside kick.
Is that the first onside recovery of the season?
Ooh, I don't know.
There's another team that got an onside recovery this year, just this week.
What?
Yeah, it bounced off of. Was it the 49ers?
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Not these slate of games, but last week, right? Or was it this week?
I want to say.
Yeah, you're right though. So this isn't the first one. Well, yeah. You're right.
I almost want to say Washington football team. No, I don't remember right now.
Yeah,
but
there was
the
Cowboys.
Yeah.
Did they get? No. Okay, let's talk about something else.
Okay, I'll find out and I'll let you know. I'm pretty sure there were 2 onside kicks that were successful. One of them hit the guy and it bounced off, and one of them was like 2 guys were driving into it and the ball kind of went in between. So yeah, it's very memorable onside kicks. But yeah, all 3 going back to this game, all 3 receivers for the Rams had great games. Yep. Jefferson gets a touchdown. OBJ is coming out and getting.
But then he got COVID.
But
yeah, he would have. I would have loved to start OBJ next week.
Yeah,
I actually started him this week, and I like the progression he was going at. He's getting a lot of targets, a lot of big play looks, like 3rd down looks. If anytime Cup's not open, he's going straight to OBJ. At least that's what he did this game.
He's beating the cornerbacks to get the ball. Like that slant route that he did to get the touchdown. It's like those, and then there was like the in. So plays like that make you kind of say, okay, OBJ.
Yeah, that's why they traded for him, right? Like to make him the next number 2. Like that's what they traded him for. They're just the benefactors of having another 3rd receiver who's probably faster than OBJ. And they just used all 3 of them this game in the increments that we expected them to be used at, right? Mm-hmm. Cooper Kupp, 15 targets, OBJ, 7 targets, Van Jefferson, 3 targets. They would have probably given Van Jefferson more targets if they hadn't been winning in that whole 3rd quarter. They had a 14-point. They scored 14 points when Arizona scored no points in 3rd quarter, so they kind of transferred over to the run game. But if they were still airing it out, like Matthew Stafford only threw it 30 times. Matthew Stafford, for me, is a 50-thrower guy, right? So if they had more attempts to throw the ball, I think all 3 receivers would have been great. They already were great with only 30 attempts, but the situational football kind of hurt Van Jefferson's statistics this game.
Yeah, I think so. To your guys' point, I think OBJ is in a really beneficial scheme, right? Yeah. You have Cooper Kupp, who obviously just literally never is not open, right? At some point, the defenses are going to have to start double teaming him, right? Yeah. So you're getting Cooper Kupp double teamed. You have Van Jefferson, who they love throwing deep bombs to, right? So to take the top off, you have Van Jefferson, which that has to draw a safety.
Right.
That leaves OBJ against a number 2 or maybe even a number 3 cornerback one-on-one. And, dude, it's not like OBJ's not talented.
No, he's got the most touchdowns over the last 3 years as a wide receiver or something crazy like that.
You take Odell Beckham Jr. against a number 2 or number 3 cornerback one-on-one all day long. Right. So, I mean, he's in an insanely beneficial situation. So, I mean, I don't see this stopping anytime soon.
Yeah, it'll stop this week because he's got COVID.
Oh, yeah.
But
the only thing to stop him.
Yeah, I feel like that's not going to stop. There's a chance Cooper Kupp could get COVID, and they're like,
God, they have no receivers.
Yeah, this is going to be an intense 2 weeks of fantasy football.
Yeah, a good game from Stafford. Sony Michel filled in nicely, 20 for 79. And then, obviously, Kyler Murray, not the best game. James Conner, only 31 yards on the ground. Did get in the end zone twice. A.J. Green had a big game.
He caught the ball 9 times. Yeah. 9 for 9.
9 targets, 9 catches, 94 yards. Another insane one-handed catch. Yeah. Like, did the Steelers know James Conner could catch the ball this well?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't even think the Cardinals knew because they've been using Edmonds for the longest time. But, dude, his hands have been very impressive. Yeah. Like, for how inefficiently his yards per carry are running the ball, like, he's a pretty fucking good receiver. And that's a very underrated part of his game. Yeah. So, again, adding Edmonds, you already had A.J. Green lead the pack. Hopkins is barely having to do anything. Yeah, he's like the best receiver in the league. So as long as Kyler Murray is not putting them behind the 8 ball, the Arizona Cardinals are always in a very, very beneficial situation. So they get the Lions in Detroit next week, so a nice make-right game and bounce-back game for them. The Rams also take on the Seahawks at home. So on paper, the Rams should have a decent opportunity there, but a divisional game, Russell Wilson surging. Stay tuned. That was the Monday night game. That wraps up the slate of games. Again, another wild, wild week. Tale of two halves. That's the theme of this week. Let's kick it over to studs and duds. Shovit, give us your studs and duds.
Yeah, so let me actually find it.
Yeah, go for it, man.
I'll let you guys start.
I'll go. So my stud, we talked about him earlier, Devontae Adams. I know, from a homer perspective, I love Justin Jefferson. I talk about him a lot, and there are times where he shows the potential to be the best receiver in the league, and then we also have times where Justin Jefferson looks a little young and premature, and there's still things he needs to grow on. Well, one guy who absolutely is the best receiver in the league, it is no debate. He doesn't need to improve. He doesn't need to grow. He doesn't drop the ball. He literally makes no mistakes. He plays perfect receiver football. Devontae Adams, 10 catches, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns, 29.1 fantasy points. So, I mean, shit. It's just, I don't know. Like, he's just so good. How do you prep for him? Yeah, he's just so good.
Yeah. His route running is premier. He's fast. He can jump higher than pretty much anybody else, and he's consistent.
Yeah. And the X factor is the connection and chemistry with Aaron Rodgers
one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Is insane. I mean, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams know exactly when Rodgers is going to make that back shoulder throw, and nobody else knows that, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's
maybe
literally
Jordy
a cheat
Nelson
code.
Knows that, but nobody else.
Yeah, exactly. So, he is my stud. Insane. My dud, unfortunately, Terry McLaurin. I don't know. The theme of my duds are goose eggs. I know he only played one half of football, but there was still one half of healthy football that he played. Did not catch a pass. So, unfortunately, Terry McLaurin, you are my dud.
Yeah, he tried to get you a pass, though. He tried so hard.
He did. He tried.
He fell pretty hard, too.
And then he left for the game.
And then concussed himself.
But it did matter. Yeah. It did matter. Okay, so I'm going to do a defensive edition of studs and duds. So my duds, the Bills defense. I didn't start them. A lot of people just left them at the starting lineup because they're the second best defense and blah, 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 blue, blue, blue. Yeah, no. You got to look at situational football. They played against a bunch of shitty teams. You got to know when to start this team. You got to know when to bench this team. This is not a set it and forget it team. You got to know that if you have them. So this was definitely a forget it week, not a set it week. So, against Tampa Bay, they're like vultures when it comes to the ball. They can score a touchdown any play, but it's not worth it to go against Tom Brady to make the playoffs. The Bills are my dud of the week. And then my studs, the Titans defense, the defense that I played instead of the Bills defense. Again, also a situational type of deal here. They played against New England and got embarrassed week 12. They played like shit against Houston, only had 3 points. New Orleans, they only had 5 points. But Jacksonville comes into town with Pretty Boy, who's not even that pretty, looks like handsome Squidward. You just know he's going to turn the ball over, right? Yep. And he has no touchdowns in but 6 games total. These are the days you have to pounce on these type of situations, and they did a great job against Jacksonville, forcing 3 sacks and 4 turnovers, ended up with 19 fantasy points. So those are very studly numbers for a defense.
I love it.
Handsome Squidward.
Yeah, I love it. Defensive edition. Shovit, give us yours.
Yeah. So I'm start with my stud. My stud is someone who I wish was not my stud, but I also do wish he was my stud. It's like a weird thing that I have going on with. It's Dalvin Cook, right? He plays against the Steelers, 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm at the game. I'm like, this sucks, but he's also my fantasy team. So it's a very mixed emotions going on there. But yeah, anytime you have that much running lane and the Steelers have no way to stop, you get 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, you're going to be a stud of the week. My dud is going to be tight end Travis Kelce with 4.2 points, where a game where they were just airing, they weren't airing it out, but they had enough throws for Kelce to get his, and he just wasn't able to produce.
Yep. And
what was it, like a couple of weeks now that Kelce hasn't been producing?
He hasn't scored a touchdown in like 4 or 5 weeks, maybe more.
Well, Patrick Mahomes didn't throw a touchdown also since the middle of November, so that kind of goes hand in hand with that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, only 4.2 fantasy points, not really doing it for a tier 1 tight end.
Yeah, especially on paper when you see the Kansas City Chiefs put up 48 points, you're probably like super horny, like,
right.
Oh, what did Kelce do? And then you see 3 for 27.
Yeah.
Poop.
Yeah. That's definitely Dudley. So I like it. I like the defensive addition there. I like the uniqueness. New unique segment here. Obviously, we talked about it last week or a couple weeks ago. We have 4 weeks left in the season, guys. There are so many teams that are in this bubble of contention that are still not out of it. It's actually wild. So I got a rundown of the AFC teams. I have the list of the NFC teams. Let's try to be a little bit quick with it, but I just want to run through these teams if you guys think they're an actual playoff contender or if they're a playoff pretender, right? So first things first, in the AFC, right now the 5th seed they're the LA Chargers. They are 8-5. 8-5, so they're 1 game ahead of the 6th and 7th seed, but there's also 3 teams that are also 1 game behind them, not in the playoffs right now. At this stage, do you guys consider the Chargers pretenders or contenders?
I'm going to say they're contenders. I think that their offense is good enough to get them to the playoffs. Now, what they do once they're in the playoffs is a whole different situation, but they're contenders to be able to fight and at least get their foot into the door of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they're contenders too. Herbert's not somebody to mess around with right now. He leads the league in amount of throws, so they're not shying away from letting Herbert throw, and he's doing a very good job. He makes big plays happen. He's a smart quarterback. He has a great running back, and pretty much any wide receiver that comes into play is studly for them. So that's enough firepower to beat like the 7th seed, like the Bills right now. The Bills are just playing weird football. They're supposed to be top seed, right? Mm-hmm. They're down to the 7th seed right now, and I think a team like the Chargers that were if they were to face the Bills right now, just their offensive firepower alone. And what's the Chargers' weakness? Run game, right? Yeah. What do the Bills do? Don't run the ball.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not a really good formula to beat the Chargers there.
That's a great point. Yeah, that would be a shitty situation or a matchup for the Bills. But yeah, I also think the Chargers are contenders. Again, we know there is a huge hole in their run defense. So, in the playoffs, when, time of possession is key, right? Converting first downs is crucial. Having a balanced attack, keeping the defense on edge. My fear is how much can their defense actually step up from like shithole run defense to like all of a sudden in the playoffs, let's flip the switch. Yeah. That's the fear, right? They could put themselves in a situation where they can't even, be contending in a playoff game just because they can't get on the field with their offense. Their defense is on the field forever. So for that reason, it is, there are concerns, but I absolutely also think they are contenders. Their offense is just too good for them to miss out on the playoffs. So I do like them. Colts are the 6th seed currently. They are 7-6. Contenders, pretenders.
I think they're contenders. This is the 49ers of the AFC for me. Whenever you can run the ball that well, you need like a couple of good receivers to get those play action situations going. Mm-hmm. And like, what better receiver to have than a player like Pittman on those deep 3rd down play action bombs? Like, they have everything they need. They have a good defense. They have a formidable quarterback. As much as we want to shit on him, he's not a bad quarterback to have compared to these other quarterbacks that we're looking at. This is a very complete team, if not the most complete team on this AFC list. With given that data, just being super complete, because you just mentioned earlier, what do you need to have when you're in the playoffs? You need to have a little bit of everything, and the team that has the most little bit of everything here is the Colts.
I'm going to say pretenders, and the reason I'm going to say that is because of their schedule. So they've got the Patriots, and then they've got Cardinals. So those are going to be 2 tough games. Mm-hmm. Then they have the Raiders and Jaguars. So they can go 2-2 for the rest of the season, and whether that makes the playoffs or doesn't make the playoffs, that's going to be the question there. I think that won't that will actually hinder them from making the playoffs, and one of the teams from the AFC North will be the third seed and take their spot. So because of their strength of schedule, I'm going to say that the Colts are a pretender.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that, you think they probably have to go 3-1 at least. And they have 2 tough games. So can they win one of those 2 tough games and then go 3-1? That remains to be seen. Cardinals are tough. Patriots, I don't think anybody wants to play. So Indianapolis has a 13th hardest schedule remaining, so something to look at. The Bills are right below them. They're also 7-6, but they are holding the 7th seed. I'll start with the Bills. I think the Bills are going to be contenders. Unfortunately, this is also just simply because of their schedule. So Buffalo does still have New England as their tough game, but they play the Jets, they play the Carolina Panthers, and they play the Atlanta Falcons. So some team that can kind of control their own destiny, even if they lose to the Patriots, you run the table with 3 shitty teams, you should be in the playoffs. So I don't trust the Bills personally, just because we've seen so many inconsistent games from them the last 3 or 4 weeks. But set schedule-wise, they are in a very opportune situation, so I think they're contenders.
Yeah, I would agree with you. That schedule, I mean, the Patriots are the only tough team there. They should beat the Panthers. Falcons are going to be tough, but also beatable. And then you have the Jets, who are bad.
Yeah,
a bad team.
Yeah, I didn't realize we were like bringing the rest of the season schedule into all these conversations because I don't have that information in front of me. But if we're talking about the rest of the season schedule, then yeah, definitely contenders. At this moment right now, without looking at the rest of the season contenders, the schedule, pretenders beyond belief, if not like my biggest pretenders right now. Yeah, because they're just not doing it. They can't get it done. Like, there's certain things you have to get done for me to be like, that's a good football team. They're not getting those things done. They're not getting those things done at all. They're these losses against, they're obviously lost. They're losing against good teams. But what's the definition of pretending and contending? Like, you got to beat the good teams to be a contender.
Yep.
They just lost against Tampa Bay. They just lost against New England. They've lost against Indianapolis. Those are the teams that they're going to be playing in the playoffs. So if we're talking about right now, like, what's the situation looking like? I think they're pretenders. But if we look at the schedules, then yeah, they're contenders.
Browns, right outside the playoff spot. They're 7-6. Contenders, pretenders.
Pretenders.
I echo pretenders. I mean, they have the 7th hardest remaining strength of schedule. They still have the Packers. They still have the Bengals who are fighting for a playoff spot, and they still have the Steelers who are fighting for a playoff spot.
You know what's funny is I wouldn't even need to look at the schedule to be like, these guys are pretenders.
Yeah.
They have a good defense. I'll give them that, if not one of the best front 4 in the league. But they still have Baker Mayfield. I'm not afraid of Baker Mayfield in any situation. And it doesn't matter if they're playing the Lions. It doesn't matter if they're playing the Bengals. It doesn't matter if they're playing the Texans. I'm always going to be like, could they possibly lose? Right? Yep. And then now, instead of that, you get Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Even a Las Vegas team, I'm like, could they lose to them? So like they could easily just lose out. So for that reason, the Browns just pose no threat to like anybody besides a good defensive pressure. But what do they get out of pressuring the other team? They get nothing out of that.
Yeah, even if they get the ball back, they have Baker Mayfield.
Exactly. So I would label them as a pretender.
Yeah, Bengals right below them, 7-6.
I'm going to say contender just because they do have that firepower of beating good offenses, and they can figure out their defense in the next 4 games. I think they could definitely get themselves into the playoffs. They've got to beat the Browns. They've got to beat the Steelers.
Yep.
Oh,
they're not the Steelers.
Not the
they
Steelers.
have the 5th
Browns
hardest remaining schedule.
Yeah.
Chiefs, Ravens, Browns, Broncos.
See, and I think it's a hard schedule because teams in the AFC North are above 500. Mm-hmm. But I don't. The Browns are beatable, and the Ravens are beatable as well. Yep. And then you have
even the Broncos
and the Broncos. So you can go finish 3-1 and be higher than the Colts. And if the Colts are only 2-2 and make the playoffs.
Yeah, I just don't think their defense can do it. I'm gonna call them pretenders. They have great offensive firepower, but like the team that I would compare them to is the Chargers. The Chargers have the same type of offensive weapons. They're really stout, but they have a better quarterback at this point in the season. I love Burrow for everything he does, and he's just a savage. But Herbert can definitely make bigger plays happen with lesser talent on that team. And it's the same comparison. The Bengals secondary is just bad. It's just really bad. It's not about stopping the run. Being bad at stopping the run allows more plays for your defense to stop them more. Being bad in your secondary could just end that drive right there. And that's what the Bengals suck at. And that's one of the biggest reasons for losing so many games is their secondary is just poor. They lost to the Jets. They lost because, teams exploited that deepness. So I would like to see what they can do, but unfortunately, like beating Denver, I don't see that happening. Mm-hmm. Denver's defense is really good, and then you got to beat Baltimore. I don't know. Yeah, Baltimore's weird, but they're still top of the division, and it's Ravens compared to Bengals, just historically, it's just like they're like children compared to the Ravens. So, and then they play the Chiefs after that, and they might beat out Cleveland. But yeah, I would love to say the Bengals are contenders, but at this point, just looking at historically and the bad defense, I'm gonna go with pretenders because there's other teams on this list that I feel like could get that label instead of them.
Yeah, right below that, Broncos also 7-6.
Yeah, I'm gonna call them contenders. I'm gonna call them contenders. They're just like all these other teams. Like I have a formula for succeeding in the playoffs, and that's having a really good run game and having a really good defense. And those teams give you an opportunity no matter what, right? Broncos, they've beaten a lot of good teams. They've shown us. I've called them pretenders more than anybody else. The first half of the season, they had easy schedule. They lost some weird games, but then they've come back showing that you can't stop their run, and their defensive secondary is for real, right? So, I mean, I'm not trying to like hype up the Broncos, but just versus like the Bengals, I will go ahead and call the Broncos more of a contender than the Bengals.
Yeah, for me, it's either one or the other. It's either Bengals are the contender and Broncos aren't, or Broncos are and Bengals aren't. I'm gonna say the Broncos are pretenders, and they also have a tough matchup remaining. You got to beat the Chargers, you got to beat the Chiefs, and then you have to beat the Bengals to be able to get into the wild card position. And I don't think that you can really trust Teddy Bridgewater. Although they do run the ball often, I don't think you can trust Teddy to win you games, win you 3 out of 4 games to make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me is I really like Denver. I think they're a team that if they can sneak into the 7th spot, most teams won't want to face. Like, if the teams that are the second seed or third seed had a choice to pick, I think the Broncos would be like one of the last ones on their list, just because, their defense is good. They run the ball a hell of a lot, right? And Teddy Bridgewater typically protects the football. He doesn't make careless mistakes, and so you just give your team a chance when you don't make careless mistakes. And so for that reason, they protect the football well and they run the ball well. They have 2 good running backs. I also think they're contenders. I actually think there's a situation where the Bills get kicked out of that playoff spot and the Broncos can creep in, but the Broncos have to play the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Bengals. So it's going to be literally, if they get into the playoffs, they deserve to get in the playoffs because they proved it by beating really good teams, right? Yeah. Or they show that they can beat good teams.
But of note, the Chiefs and the Chargers are their divisional matchups, right? And Broncos usually have the upper hand in that scenario. Yeah. Maybe not the Chiefs as of late, but just historically.
Yeah, historically.
It's like us playing the Packers versus playing the Bears and the Lions. If we are the Broncos in this scenario, the Chargers are the Bears, right? So like they're not really afraid of playing them.
Yeah, absolutely. Steelers 6-1, right below that.
Yeah, definitely pretenders. It's going to be tough. I mean, even if we get to the playoffs, I mean that run game is so atrocious. Or run defense is so atrocious. I would love to see that for Big Ben if it's his last year, but I just don't see us having a strong enough defense to be in the playoffs.
I mean, you do have the Browns and Ravens, and you just mentioned how close that division is,
right.
Steelers are always in the thick of it up until the end, and that's because you guys take advantage of these Browns and Ravens games. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Chiefs game, I don't see any way you guys are going to win that game, and Titans are weird Titans things, and and the problem is even if you win all 4 of these games, there's still a chance you might not make the playoffs, right?
If we win all 4 of the games, there's a strong chance that we actually make it because of the division.
Oh, I see.
Instead of 1 game back, or 1.5 game back.
Right. Gotcha. I'm gonna have to go with pretenders just because there's stronger teams out there. Like I'm not really afraid of Big Ben like trying to come back on me, even though that just happened.
Yeah, second hardest schedule remaining. Yeah, defense. I mean, it's tough to play this game the week after that. We saw what that defense looked like. So it's just, how are we going to call them contenders when Dalvin Cook literally had running lanes like the 3 of us combined could probably run through together. So for that reason, they're pretenders to me. Right below that, really, really long shot at 6 and 7. You have the Raiders and you have the Dolphins.
Raiders, pretenders. Yeah. I got nothing good to say about them. Yeah. They suck. They're just
pretenders.
But the Dolphins, you bring up a really good one here. I think this team could beat any of these teams ahead of them at the rate they're playing. You did mention they have had a pretty easy schedule coming up, but the rate at their blitzing is insane. This is the same rate that the the Ravens typically blitz at, but they're like 2% higher. Wow. So like that feared defense that we think of when we think of the Ravens is because of the insane amount of times they blitz the ball. And the Dolphins are using that same formula, and they've won like how many games in a row now? Like 5. So it's hard to call a team that's won 5 straight games as pretenders. And The problem is COVID's decimated their running back situation, but they do get 2 running backs back, and this is not really a team that relies on their running back that much. So I'm just excited. This team is fun to watch just because there's a lot going on, and Devontae Parker seems like he's back for the first time in, back-to-back games. We get to see him back-to-back games, which hasn't happened that well. So, yeah, I'm going to call them contenders.
Yeah, they seem like they're so far back when they're only really 1 game back of all of the teams that are here, 7-6, and they're 6-7.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that they are pretenders because I still feel like it's gonna be a tough stretch, but they've got a good opportunity. I mean, they play Jets, then they play the Saints, and then Titans. And then the Patriots fall on that. But those first 3 games, I think, are teams that they can definitely beat. So, I mean, there's a strong chance, but I'm just gonna go on the side of saying Miami Dolphins aren't able to do that.
Okay. Yeah, so I am also gonna say pretender just because I'm still not convinced of Tua.
Yeah.
But you bring up a really good point schedule wise, right? The hardest game they get last, and if that time the Patriots have already locked up the first round bye or number 1 seed, Miami has a really legitimate shot to run the table.
Yep.
Right? So if they run the table and if they're 10-7, I mean, there's a really, really good chance they're in the playoffs. So this team controls their own destiny, even though they're 6-7, right? So this will be really, really interesting to see. The schedule plays in their favor. You got to beat the Jets. You got to beat the Saints. Titans are up in the air. They have a lot of injuries, so they can be beat. And then the Patriots, you could just luck into a situation where the Patriots just rest their guys. So that'll be interesting to see. Let's kick it over to the NFC real quick, guys. We have the Rams at the 5th seed right now. I don't know if that changed, actually, because they won yesterday. My bad. So the Rams actually won yesterday. Did that change the seeding at all?
I think the Cardinals are no longer number 1. So
so that changed that. But are the Rams still?
They
I think
should
the Rams
still be number 1 in the wild card contention.
Yeah, so the Rams, they're 9-4, but they are still 5th seed, so they're still the number 1 wild card spot. I mean, at this point, they're 9-4, so I would say they're a contender. There's really no question. I mean, they definitely have holes, right? Don't get me wrong. This was their first or second big win of the season, so all the rest of their games have been against easy teams, and all their losses have been against tough teams. But they do. They have star players on defense that are big, game-changing players, and then their offense is really, really good. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Matthew Stafford. Can he come through in the clutch? But to me, they're contenders.
Yeah. They get to play Seattle next week. They're probably going to beat them. They play us. Hopefully we get the Lions Stafford that day because we have his number. And then Baltimore and San Francisco. These aren't easy games. All 4 of these games are pretty, it's anybody's game, really. But they are getting together. They've lost 3 straight games, and then they got a bye week to figure this out. OBJ is getting more targets. Von Miller's getting more snaps. They're kind of like all these players they've kind of like assembled are finally getting to play more, and they're figuring each other out. So even if they don't win all these games or they sneak into the playoffs, they're still contenders. How can you call a team like this the pretenders? But we're only doing the wild card thing. If we were counting the rest of the playoff teams as well, I do agree that they're not as good as a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, contenders for sure.
Yeah. San Francisco, 6th seed right now, 7-6, contender, pretender.
San Francisco are big-time contenders. They've got a great run offense, and then I think their defense is good enough for them to be able to, keep up with strong defensives like we saw, or strong offenses like we saw with the Cincinnati Bengals. Definitely contenders of the NFC.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Contender. I think contender. The run game's insane. If Elijah Mitchell's healthy, I don't know how they get it done, but they get the job done running the ball. It looks like every game. Doesn't matter who's back there. And Kittle emergence, insane. Deebo Samuel's a huge X factor. Huge. I mean, think about this. They haven't even scratched the surface of how often they can get Deebo Samuel the ball, right?
Yeah.
They're winning, and Deebo Samuel had 1 catch. Imagine in a situation where it's like, okay, guys, we're in the playoffs. Every game is must win. Let's actually give the guy that is insane the ball a little bit more times. We don't know what that limit looks like. And I do not want to mess with this team. So to me, they are absolutely contenders. The only situation with them is they are 7-6, so there is a chance they could still go 2-2 and make the playoffs. They have 2 really easy games, Texans and Falcons. Not really easy with the Falcons, but easy enough. And then they do have the Rams and the Titans. So I feel like they could split 2-2 as a very average way to get in the playoffs, or if they do sneak a 3rd win between the Rams and the Titans, then they're absolutely in. But I want no part of the 49ers. They are absolutely contenders.
Yeah, I have nothing more to add.
Yeah. And then Washington football team. Now they are still the 7th seed despite losing, but they're sitting 6-7. Contender, pretender.
This is a tough one. I feel like it's either between it's between them and Eagles. I'm gonna say pretender because They had the chance of going and beating the Cowboys last game, and they just weren't able to do that. Their defense, what we talked about, was kind of what's been stepping up. Didn't really until the fourth quarter towards the end. So for me, they're pretenders.
Yeah, this is the Dolphins situation for me, but they're just not as good as the Dolphins. Something about them is just not clicking. They're winning games. They're like fighting. They're figuring out ways to scratch the games and make it work. But this is still not a team I'm afraid of, right? Like there's other teams on this list. Like the 49ers, like the Rams. And if we're talking about the 7th seed, they're probably the best out of the 7th seed situation going on right now. But the teams like the Saints that still have such a good defense, and if homeboy, Taysom Hill can figure out how to throw the ball by the time playoff starts, that team alone, if Taysom Hill doesn't make mistakes, is still better than the Washington football team. And don't forget the Vikings, which we're going to talk about next.
Yeah. Washington football team, I think this game was the, act like you belong game. Yeah. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter how it played out. They needed to win this game. And because they didn't, now that 3-game division gap, now they're 6-7. Heineke's hobbling. McLaurin's got a concussion. Gibson can't run the football. How much can you really just rely on your defense that also in the first half of the season was really bad? Yeah. So they had this insane momentum to where if they beat the Cowboys, our vision of the football team would all of a sudden be so different. Yeah. But because of that loss, I think they are going to fall. I think they're going to slide. There are other teams, like you talked about, below them that I think are much more contenders. So I echo that. I think they're pretenders. Next game on the board, our Minnesota Vikings, 6-7.
Oh, man, you go first.
I'm going to say pretender, and the reason I'm going to say pretender is because it's a very tough schedule looking at this. You guys have to you play the Bears twice, you play the Rams, and you play the Packers as well. I mean, the two that stands out to me is the Rams and Packers. It's going to be a very tough. Rams, I'm sure you guys agree, are beatable, but whether or not you guys get the job done is between, whether you guys are pretender or contenders. So I'm going to say pretender.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a good point, right? I want to believe the Vikings are contenders, but let's look at it like logically. They play the Packers one more time, and they already beat the Packers once. We pretty much never sweep the Packers, right? Divisionally, that's just really tough to do. Even Chicago, we play them twice. They're bad, but we suck at Soldier Field. And divisional game, it's hard to sweep unless they're the Lions. And then again, the Rams are good. The Rams are beatable, but our Achilles is our defense, and it's scary to think about how we could possibly control those receivers. It gives me nightmares. So yeah, our schedule does not help us whatsoever. If we had already lost to the Packers, I might also look at this a little bit differently, but we won the big game against the Packers already. So unless they're resting their guys, which I don't think it's going to be late enough in the season for that to happen, I unfortunately also think we're pretenders.
Yeah, no, we're definitely pretenders. What are you talking about? Like, why is this even a debate? Like, we lose against the shittiest teams. We beat some good teams. We keep games close. Like, these aren't the marks of a good team. These are the marks of a team that just doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
And even though out of this list, I would still consider our offense the most
100%
out of all this list.
Offense,
besides the Chargers, maybe, but we beat the Chargers, so what now? But that's not what wins games. Offense can do all you want, but we've seen how important defense is, and we've seen how important schedule is. Like, Washington football team and the Eagles play each other only for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Like, they only play within the division, right? And that division sucks ass.
Yep.
Meanwhile, we're playing Green Bay and the Rams and Chicago twice. Like, that's a 1-3 looking schedule.
Yeah.
So just from a schedule standpoint and from how these other teams' schedules look like, I think the Eagles and Washington football team have a better chance at sneaking out that 7th seed, unless something changes on defense and the defense starts allowing like 10 points a game. We're not making the playoffs.
Yeah. You talked about them. Eagles are right under us. They're 6-7. All of their games are within the division. Contender, pretender.
Pretender. Yeah, because I just it's going to be tough to beat the Cowboys again. Mm-hmm. And to beat the Washington twice. I feel like that's also a split. Mm-hmm. And then they beat the Giants. So it's going to be 2-2, and whether or not 8-9 gets you to the playoffs, I don't think it does. So no, I'm going to say pretender for the Eagles as well.
Yeah, their schedule is identical to the Vikings. Their situation is identical to the Vikings. They still have one divisional team that they have to play twice, right? It's hard to sweep those. Yeah. And then they have a divisional team that's the best team in the division that they've already beat. Yeah. So chances are they're going to lose this one.
It's the same thing.
It's almost literally identical, except that their only other game is against another divisional opponent that sucks, and we play the Rams. But just schedule-wise, it's going to be very, very difficult for them. For that reason, I also think they're pretenders.
Yeah, check out the games they've won, okay? They beat the Falcons. They beat the Panthers. They beat the Lions. They beat the Broncos. They beat the New Orleans Saints, and they beat the Jets. I could beat those teams. I could beat those teams on Madden right now. Like that's not a very impressive resume, and they're coming out of a bye week with their star quarterback injured. I don't know how the chemistry is going to work there, and I don't like this. I don't like the situation. It'd be impressive to see them coming out of a bye and just turning into like this powerhouse. But as many weapons as they have and as weird of a football style they use, I don't see them making the playoffs either.
Falcons 6-7.
Pretenders.
So have you called all three of the teams currently in the seed all contenders?
I've called Washington football team pretender, Vikings, Eagles, and Falcons pretenders.
So who you think is gonna make the playoffs?
The Saints. The Saints.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I'm just looking at their schedule. I feel like the Saints have the best opportunity than all of the. Yeah, Falcons. I'm gonna say pretender. I just don't feel like that team. It's very inconsistent, and they're gonna have to win more games than lose games, and I just don't think they will be able to do that in the next 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this grouping, and it's just to me, anyways. I'm like, which one's the odd one out? And it just seems like Atlanta, unfortunately. Like they have 6 wins, but their 6 wins are all against really, really even worse teams than the Eagles' 6 wins. Right? So it's just like, dude, you haven't beat a good team all year.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Giants, Jets, Miami, New Orleans, Jacksonville, Carolina.
Yeah.
It can't get worse than that.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're pretenders. They're just, we already know this. Like, it's funny. It's fun to see them like compete in games, but at the end of the day, like, you're not going anywhere.
So that brings up a great point. The last 2 teams we just talked about, the Eagles and the Falcons, both of them had one victory that was the same. You know what it was? The next team on the board that you claim is a contender. The Saints at 6-7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they already beat
both those teams have beat the Saints, which means they own the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Head to head.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's going to make it pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Saints. Well, the Saints play the Falcons again.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess
they got Carolina still. They got Miami still.
They got Miami. Yeah, so looking at the Buccaneers is going to be a tough matchup, right? But you've got Dolphins, Panthers, and Falcons. Mm-hmm. If you can finish 3-1 at the end of the season,
9-8 could get you in.
I
mean, it's a good chance to get in.
Right, that's what I'm looking at.
I'm not sure where you guys getting all this Saints energy from, but they were on a 5-game losing streak before they just beat the Jets.
Yeah.
They're still a shitty team.
Yeah, and Taysom Hill's their quarterback.
Like I don't like Miami. I don't know why we're still forgetting that they're on a 5-game winning streak, not on a 5-game losing streak. I wouldn't overlook the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would not overlook Miami, and I wouldn't overlook the Falcons to win a game like this simply because they've already beat them before. Carolina, they might beat them, and their defense is good, but I also don't see them going far. Like, can you see the Falcons keeping up with the Rams? Or sorry, the Saints keeping up with the Rams? Can you see the Saints keeping up with 49ers? I don't know. I don't think I can. I'm going to call the Saints pretenders, and I'm going to the other team that Washington football team will be my contender to make that last
It kind of
seed.
just shows you how open the 7 seed is.
Yeah,
though.
dude, this is
it's
wide open.
open.
I mean,
the Seahawks aren't even done.
Right.
Oh, don't jump the gun, guys. So the Panthers are 5-8. I think we can all agree in unison they're pretenders.
Yes.
Yeah.
My contender,
Seahawks.
Seattle Seahawks, run the table 9-8, make the playoffs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They have to beat the Rams next week, right? They have to beat the Rams next week, but they get the Bears, they get the Lions, and I think they end with Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Do they end with Arizona?
I don't know.
They end with Arizona.
Yeah,
and at that point,
bye week.
Yeah.
Or like resting players, right? So you beat the Rams next week, all of a sudden Seattle runs the table, playoffs.
Okay. But they got to beat the Rams.
Yeah, they got to beat the Rams. That's it. Next week is a must win, but if they win next week, everything is in their hands.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. We'll
Scary.
See. It is.
Yeah.
And you don't want Russell Wilson getting
You
better
really don't.
as the 7th seed.
Right.
Plain spoiler.
It's all about their defense for
Yep.
me. It's all about their defense for me. I know you had some faith on their defense starting them against the Texans.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm as optimistic as this defense. I still think it's like the 3rd or the 4th worst defense in the league. But we have seen this offensive firepower. I told you 30 points back-to-back weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they can beat the Rams, but that would be really cool to see.
And it is a divisional matchup, right? So on paper, yes, Rams should be way better. Division game, everything gets thrown out the window. So, yes, upset the Rams and then run the table. I think Seattle has like – we just went through this list, guys. Washington, I don't think has it. The Vikings schedule's tough. Eagles schedule is tough. Falcons aren't good. Saints literally lost to the 2 teams above them that aren't good. Panthers are out of it. Like, Seattle has a really, really big outside shot looking in to make this playoff team.
They've already played the Rams. They lost against the Rams. I think it was like a Thursday night football game. So, you know, you've already played them once. You can use that kind of to prep for the next game.
For sure. They could definitely beat the Rams, but they could also be the team to lose to the Lions for the second time. So these are like it's very much up for grabs. Like it could go either way.
Absolutely.
And I just want, from a Russell Wilson fan perspective, I kind of want to see this happen.
That'd be wild.
But I mean, if we're gonna be like then I'd rather just pick the Vikings in the 7th seed.
I mean, yeah. What's funny is we went through this segment, and I'm like, none of these guys are gonna make the playoffs.
Yeah, they
Bucs are
suck.
7th seed.
Dude, compare the AFC.
Yeah, the 7th seed's ass in the NFC. The AFC is so insanely talented.
But this is the fun. This is like when you do the March Madness and like the Cinderella teams.
Yeah.
comes.
Yes.
There's
Oh, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 possible Cinderella teams right now.
This is wild. I mean, that's it. That's the playoff contender pretender. I mean, this is still 4 weeks away, so every week this is just slowly going to shuffle up
Yeah.
and down. Things are going to change. We'll try to kind of touch on this every recap episode that we do from here on out. Let's end the episode previewing Thursday Night Football. Since we're going to record next on Friday, Thursday we're going to see Spider-Man. I'm still on board with just turning everything off, recording the game, and then watching it once we get home.
As long as everybody's on board.
Yeah, or if Shovet's not on board, he just does not say anything to either of us.
Yeah.
That's
But
probably what'll happen.
yeah, I figured. So that means the Chiefs are going to LA to take on the Chargers. Chiefs are 9-4. LA is 8-5. Chiefs on the road, favored by 3, over under 52. Now these two teams already played in Week 3. The Chargers won 30-24. It was a big game for Herbert. He had 4 touchdowns. That was when Mike Williams was kind of on an insane tear, 7 for 122 and 2 touchdowns. And Patty Mahomes was doing the thing where he was getting unlucky and throwing a lot of interceptions. So he had 2 interceptions this game. Those were the differences in why the Chargers won by 6. Rematch game. It is in LA. What do you guys see?
Yeah, rematch game, and this time around, the Kansas City Chiefs are a whole different team than what the Chargers or what they were in the beginning of the season. And in some respect, the Chargers are also a different team. Well, we have figured out their flaws on defense, and I'm sure that Kansas City has also figured that out. So just looking at this, I feel like Chiefs should win this game, although it is in Los Angeles. They're on this 5-game winning streak, and they just seem very difficult to stop on the running game, and if that can kind of continue like it did last week, then Patrick Mahomes should be able to beat the team.
Yeah, without turnovers, this game is already over for me. Like, without turnovers, if the Chiefs, because they move the ball, right? We've been talking about that every freaking week. They don't have problems moving the ball with all these drops, with all these other problems, and they're even like running the ball more, yet they still find ways to just move. They're always moving. They're never stopped. Nobody ever really stops them unless they turn the ball over. And the turning the ball over is usually the 3 out of the 8 picks. How many picks is, I don't know. So the good amount is all
Drops.
on Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
They're all Tyreek Hill drops. So I feel like those are avoidable as long as that doesn't happen. As long as they don't turn the ball over. I don't see how this late into the season, like, I would call the Chiefs a Super Bowl favorite right now. And I just talked about how the Chargers have so many holes on defense. This could be a high-scoring game. This will probably very well be a high-scoring game. But this will also tell us if the Chiefs' defense is for real. Because, like, they've had like a 4-game stretch of just playing lights out, like 10 points allowed-ish. Mm-hmm. So I would love to see a team that can, hold a Chargers offense to that amount of points. Like, I can't even fathom that right now. So this is going to be a very interesting game to watch from me.
And I think it's 11 interceptions and 6 drops are because of
receivers.
Yeah, or 6 interceptions are because of the 6 drops.
Gotcha.
So I also looked it up, but mine says 12 on ESPN.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at the date. This says December 2nd on Google, so you might be able to.
Yeah. So he's got 12 interceptions this year. But yeah, I'm with you. The matchup wise, this does not bode well for the Chargers. The Chargers have beat up on bad teams that play bad defense, and Herbert struggled against good teams that play good defense. Right? If Keenan Allen is still out, that's a big weapon for them that they need to have in a big game here. And the Chiefs' defense has been insane the last 5 weeks. So the doubts that we've had with the Chargers not playing good games against good defenses creeps back up here. Not to mention the Chargers can't stop the run. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is healthy, and they're still kind of getting Darrell Williams involved. Even fucking Gore had a big run there. So if they're really hell-bent on running the football and the Chargers literally can't stop the run.
They are hell-bent on running the football.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup, it just does not favor the Chargers. We'd have to see some really outlandish shit for the Chargers.
Dude, I'm the biggest Chargers fan on the planet that day because I'm playing against Patrick Mahomes in 2 leagues in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So let's do this, Chargers.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Herbie Herbert, lead me to victory here. That's it, guys. That is Thursday Night Football in a nutshell. Big fucking jam-packed episode. Thank you guys for sticking with us. This is only going to get wilder for the last 3-4 weeks, guys. So
we'll come up with some more fun segments.
Yeah, again, appreciate you guys sticking in. You guys got any last-minute words?
Good luck on fantasy playoffs.
Yeah. Good luck to each one of you guys. Fantasy playoffs. If you guys, give a shit or not, I play Shovit this week in our first round matchup. Shishot plays Sundish in the first round matchup. So 3rd seed versus 6th seed, 4th seed versus 5th seed.
Yep.
So a lot of in-house games going on. That's going to help decide the next couple of weeks. So we'll be at each other's throats from time to time, but it's all out of love.
Bring it on.
All out of love.
Just don't give up too early.
Yeah, just don't say GG's before the game is actually over. So that's it, guys. Episode 28. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. We're the Only Playbook. We'll see you guys on Friday.